Hello, good morning to all of you. This is the final day of the seminar, and we are going to start our academic session of the day. We have very important speaker, Professor D.N. Tiwari, Professor Ranjan Kumar Ponda, and this session is going to be chaired by Professor R.C. Pradhan. And also we have another speaker, Dr. Niti Singh. Now I would like to welcome to all of you to have your seat on the dais. Professor D.N. Tiwari sir, Professor R.C. Pradhan sir, Professor Ranjan Kumar Panda sir, and Niti ma'am. Thank you so much. Firstly, we would like to felicitate our chairperson, Professor R.C. Pradhan sir, with Garland. I can request to Nirmalya sir, could you please? Again, sir, again I would like to invite you to felicitate Professor Tiwari sir with Garland and Sir. I would like to request Professor R.C. Pradhan sir to felicitate Professor Panda Bhai with Sal and Garland. And also, I would like to invite Aradhana to felicitate Niti Singh Ma'am with Sal and Garland. Thank you. I'd like to introduce the chairperson of this session. Though we have already introduced many times from the beginning day, he is already presented paper and also chaired the sessions. We already know, but we should announce that Professor R.C. Pradhan sir is going to chair this session. He is so renowned person. He has written many books which is nationally and internationally well renowned publishers, and also he had already occupied the place in ICPR member secretary and head and professor in the Hyderabad Central University. Thank you so much, sir. And secondly, would like to introduce the renowned speaker, Professor D.N. Tiwari, sir, who is the former professor and head of this department. And he has also published many books by many national and international publishers. And sir is so much well known to all of us, not in India, it is also beyond India. So without any delay, I think I can request to Tiwari sir to present his paper.
Om Saraswati Devyai Namah. Respected Chairman of the session, Dr. R.C. Pradhan, Professor Nirmal Narayan Chakravarti, Professor Panda, colleagues, the convener Rajiv ji, research scholars, and the scholars online. I am fortunate to present my views in the presence of so many stalwart scholars of philosophy of language like Professor R.C. Pradhan, Chakravarti, and others. Earlier, I thought that I should speak on the semantic philosophy of Bhartrihari. But later I decided that I will be given very much less time. So I should take a issue that may be interesting to audience and may take little time. So the topic of my paper is meaning of proper names. Proper noun, proper names. So in Panini Sutra, Arni Ashtadhyayi, chapter 5, Sutra 1, the Bhartikar Katyayan has written a Bhartik. That Bhartik is about how to name and what does it mean when we name someone, some proper name, like D.N. Tiwari, like Ram, Mohan, Dit, Yadit, any name. So he has written the Bhartik. सिद्धम तु यस्य गुणस्य भावात् द्रव्य शब्दा सन्निवेशस्य अभिधाने त्वतलौ. Twatal suffix, tadit suffix is added with the name when the person named is a referent outside. So observing this Bhartik, Dingnag in Praman Samuchay has several times referred to this Bhartik, and he has interpreted it in the sense that name is given to the thing, to the person, on the basis of the to the person in spatio-temporal world, on the basis of the qualities the person named has. So, on the basis of this interpretation of Dingnag, that name is given to the named on the basis of its qualities, is interpreted by so many scholars like Radhika Hajbarjar, B.K. Matilal, Ganeri, and others also. So Buddhists interpret it in their own way. In Radhika Hajbarjar, he observes that Bhartrihari's theory of naming goes against Quine and in the favor of Dingnak, Buddhist. Ganeri also thinks so, but Matilal tries to reconcile the two uncompromising, unreconcilable standpoints, that the name is given to the person named on the basis of the qualities the person possesses. They are the qualities of the person in a spatio-temporal world. So, she, she has written a book named Buddhist and Bhartrihari. That was a very popular book and a scholarly book and very popular among the philosophy scholars of Buddhism and Bhartrihari. The peculiarity of that book is that some portion of the Praman Samuchay is edited therein, that is unavailable elsewhere, but she has edited. She has taken much labor to edit that. She comes to the conclusion that Bhartrihari has rejected Katyayan and Dignag has rejected Bhartrihari on the issue of the naming. So the thing is that, okay, you might be remember in Spinoza, the definition of substance. So whether the substance is having its own qualities or the substance is conceived by us as having qualities. Eh? So Kuno, Fisher and Hegel, they have interpreted in two ways. Likewise, here the same problem is raised, that whether the qualities belong to the thing named and the name refers to that or not. So these Buddhist thinkers following Dinglar, they interpret that no, the, the qualities are the qualities of the thing and the name denotes that, name expresses that. But what is Bhartiya's standpoint? Bhartiya has written three samudesas. Two on substance, individual as the meaning of the words, all words. And the second is universal as the meaning of all words. So throughout the Vakyapadiya, and even Mahabhasya, interpretation of Mahabhasya, Deepika. He has interpreted the whole issue on the basis of universal as the meaning of all words. So the problem arises there that how can you say that that person, individual, is universal? If universal is the meaning of all words, if universal is the import of all words, even names, then how can you say that he is Ram? Huh? Because Ram is not universal, he is individual. So he has interpreted it. For example, yes, Devdatta is individual, but on the basis of universal, we can explain how it conveys, Devdatta word conveys universal. So when he was a child, he was Devadatta. When he grow, he was Devadatta. When he is youth, he was Devadatta. When he will grow old, he will be Devadatta. And after that, even when he will be remembered, he will be remembered. So Devadatta resides. Devadatta is universal, residing in all the individual stages of Devadatta. And therefore, the word Devadatta denotes universal. Now here, the problem is about naming. In order to make it understandable, Bhartrihari has taken the view that, okay, universals are flashed in my mind when the words are uttered. For example, when Ram is uttered, the universal Ram is uttered. Ram is not one which is before me in the audience. But so many Ram is there in the audience. But they are not in proximity with me. They are not the persons having allegiance, my allegiance, having my concern. But universal is revealed. And as universal resides in individuals, the revealed universal is imposed on the individual, and by this imposition of the universal, individual is also known. So when I say individual, Bhartrihari want to say that when I say that individual, all the specific qualities are conveyed by the word. For example, Rama. So Rama denotes a suffix, denotes. I'm taking medicine, therefore sometimes problem. Ram denotes universal in five meanings. When I say Rama, it, it expresses five meanings. Ram is not an individual which is indeterminate, but Ram is the meaning that is determinate because universals are determinated only by language, by words. Ideas are suppose there is a thing, the bottle. So bottle has its own qualities, long, size, shape, color, and some function. So these qualities determine the bottle. So yes, it is the bottle because it has these qualities. But the idea of the bottle, that is universal. What determines this idea? This idea is the object of knowledge. The bottle is the object of senses. Senses acquire only sense data, not knowledge, not the content of knowledge. Sense data serves as the uh, manifester of the idea. And that idea, we can know only the ideas. The intelligible being is only idea. The idea of language and the meaning. Because no meaning is possible without language. Can you think of any meaning without language? If there is language only, then there is a meaning. In at the level of idea, at the level of imagination, etc. Also, the meaning cannot be possible without the language. This is what the Parnian tradition of philosophers accept. So, universals are expressed, and when by some similarity, the universal is imposed on the individual named on the basis of our interest, our uh, allegiances, our attachment, and all that. So, two-level use of the word and two-level understanding of the meaning is involved here. Why? Because I have after this, after clarifying this, I will come to the identical cognition. The problem is identical cognition. When I say Ram, how the word expresses the identical cognition of the meaning. If meaning is exterior, external to the word. So the words expresses universal, and it is by some similarity, some opposition, or some uh, commonness, no, some similarity, it is imposed on. So the first level of language is what we utter, what we articulate, verbal noises, are written marks we use in writing or we speak. The first level, the grossest level. The second level is the idea level. So no idea is without language. And we can know only the idea, that is universal. Okay, concepts. So no concept is isolated from language. There are two theories, and Professor R.C. Pradhan and Chakravarti and others also know that in fact we ponder over the things outside, but actually we philosophers deal only with the concepts. And no concept is acceptable without language, because all concepts are expressed by the language. So the grossest level bakery is used for as reference, as representation, as designation, as description, and so many things. This is one use of the language, that is the language as reference or representation or designation. So many ways you can say. The upper level is the language as idea. So that does not refer, that expresses knowledge, that flashes knowledge. When the idea, the object flashes in the mind, that is knowledge. We know it. We know the thing. So knowing is everything in philosophy, not assuming, not indicating. So you can indicate something, but that is not knowledge. That is upalakshak of knowledge. Upalakshak. For example, if I am saying, which one is the house of Professor Chakravarti. Somebody told me that, oh, that on the roof there is a crow sitting. After that, the crow flies. But that indication made me, uh, guided me to attend the house. So, in attending house, the crow is only upalakshak, pointer, indicator, not the expressor. The expressor is the language as intelligible being, idea. So, universal. This idea is imposed on reference outside. And in Western philosophy also, reference is not what usually we we use. Our representation is not usually we use, but you will find the later philosophers of language. Professor Pradhan has written Language and Representation, a book, very good book. So, in this, when we represent thing represented means not represented thing, but represented thing, not the thing, but the thing represented. So the represented world is a different from the represented thing. This is what uh, representation means. Am I right, sir? Uh, so, like fact, fact is not the thing outside, but it is something constructed logically, or epistemologically, you can say. Anyway, it is a constructed fact, not a fact in the bare in the spatio-temporal world. Likewise, reference is also considered. That reference is a thing that uh, we consider in relation between the thing outside and our experience to it. So it is not where the thing outside we perceive by the senses, but something we acquire the sense data. So like that. Similarly, Bhartrihari considers that when we use the language for referring a thing, it refers individual, no doubt. Individual is not a bare individual, but when I say Ram, the individual, it means universal, individual, and also its gender, its number one Rama, सब प्रत्यय, एक वचन, in one single number. So number one. So he is number one in number. He is masculine in gender, and its color and its other qualities are also referred by the word itself. This is the Vyakarana's view, Sabdika's view, grammarian's view. So when you say that Rama, the Rama does not mean only Ram, but Ram with all its specific qualities. So specific qualities are not there to be referred in the thing outside, but it is already conveyed by the word. Individuality containing all these qualities is referred also by the word. So the qualities are not the qualities of the thing outside. Maybe thing outside having so many qualities, but that is beyond our reach. That is beyond the grasp of the language. So we accept only what flashes in the mind as language, as idea. And when the individual idea is flashed in the mind, it is an aggregate of individual is aggregate of that I can say determinate thing. So the name is a determinate thing which we name. So the meaning of name is all the five. The individual qualified by all the five qualities. So this is Bhartrihari position. Dignac position is that different from Buddhist, because Buddhists also say, other Buddhists like Nagarjuna, the Dharmakirti and his followers, they also accept that no, the thing outside and the qualities outside, they are not known to us. What we can know is only conceptual constructs. This is their position. And that's why Dingnag differs from the other Buddhists. Dingnag differs from the other Buddhists on this issue. And this is perhaps the reason that Dingnag was not taken up by great Buddhist philosophers. हाँ? सर टाइम खत्म करने वाले हैं थोड़ी देर बस इस पॉइंट को क्लियर कर दें हाँ now this was controversy and what the scholars like B.K. Matilal says I'm coming to that. B.K. Matilal has taken different way. He says that all that we refer to by the verbal articulations, they are also, as Helaraj says, rebirth of the Shabda Brahman. So, being the rebirth, everything is of the nature, in reality is Brahman. So, there is uh, uh, no problem if you say that the object, the name referred is this is same are identical to the idea flashed. So there is identical knowledge by the word by the proper names. But he raises a question. 1 minute I will take and then I will reply here. What is common among the names because of which they are known as names in the use of the nominative suffix tadit? Just 4 minutes. Okay. And what makes one different from the other is twofold. It is, he says that what is common in between the what the words refer and what we in individual and universal. What is the common? So there is no issue of commonness in Bhartrihari. No common part is accepted. Okay. All are, even I say that words individuals, names also, Ram. You may be Ram, you are different. He may be Ram, he is different. So all individuals are different. No two individuals are the same and equal. All are different. So he raises the issue of commonness. Again, he raises the issue of identical cognition by yet. Why we say that both are names? It and Yadit. Two names he has given, Dit and Adit. Why they are known as proper names? Different proper names. So when I say Ram, I am making a difference already from other. So it is words expresses their own meaning. When I say Ashwa, it expresses horse. When I say Hasti, it expresses elephant. So words express their own meaning. Second is that since since universal are manifested by individuals, so the class of the individual that manifests the universal will not be confused. For example, Dith class is manifested by the individual Dith and Yadith by the individual manifested by, and when it manifested, the universal is expressed. So all are having their different individuals, and therefore, in expressing the universal, there will be no confusion between it and that. But why they are names? This is why they are proper names. So proper names what allow because of the suffix added with the names. Rama, it is proper name because here suffix is added. It is proper noun, nominative case and proper name. So on the basis of the suffixes means five: individual, universal, even verb is also because something is agent because of some action. So agent is also there. And then the gender of the uh, uh, word, proper name, gender is also conveyed by the suffix. And the number is also Rama, Ramau, Ramo, two number. Ah, Rama, number in one. And so all these fives are conveyed by the word and not by, and so we do not say that identical cognition is of Ram as Ram is expressed because of the Ram in the because of the qualities of the Ram in the spatio-temporal world. No, we are we are Shabdikas, and our concern is with only what the word expresses. Mahabhaskar says, idam nityam anityam va. All these things exterior to in the external spatio-temporal world, they exist, they are eternal, they are non-eternal. These all are not concerned with us. We are language philosophers. Our concern is what is expressed in the mind, what we know, and not what we refer or what we assume. This is the position of the Bhartrihari. So, taking the line of Dingnag and Radhika have developed, some philosophers interpret this Kartik Bhartikar ka tense Bhartik in the line of Buddhism. But Buddhist, all the knowledge that are referred by the words, they are conceptual constructs, so they cannot deny. But here in case of Dingnak, they are confusing that Bhartrihari is not right. He is not proper about the proper names. But the thing is that we have to understand the two level of working the language for meaning. The first level is referential level or representation level, and the second level is so two level of the objects also. The first level is reference. The second level is idea, the object of knowledge. So reference is only manifester of the knowledge of the language universal in nature. So on this basis, what we know is universal, and what we know only we can impose on individuals. Individuals cannot be imposed on universals because we can know only what we can impose only what we know, and we know universal. Universal can only our mind know. Individuals are known by inference on the basis of imposition of universal on them as their antique substratum. So on this basis, Bhartrihari's stand is different from the interpretation as we find in case of Radhika ji and B.K. Matilal and Ganeri. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for providing a new kind of flavor of the semantics. Now, I can request to our audience from online as well as offline to put their questions. Yes, ma'am. My friend, yes.
So thank you for your very informative lecture. I was rather confused about a particular point because when you talked about Devadatta, different states of Devadatta, where the common features of Devadatta would be inhering in all the particular states, and that seems that Devadatta would be a universal or a jati. And in that case, I'm rather confused that then what individual, the states become, each individual state becomes a locus of the universal like Devadatta, and the whole concrete person, Devadatta, who is born, grows through the intermediate stages, he won't be the individual. The who, what becomes the individual? And in this sense also, what will be the criterion of a Vyakti as contrasted with Jati? Jati, we know that it's universal and it doesn't have any Kriya, these things. But now the thing is, what is the particular? What is the locus of the, as a particular locus of the universal? What is it? Is it the state, each state of Devadatta, or if that is the particular, the whole Devadatta now loses its status of being a particular? Yeah.
So, thank you for this query. It was natural query on the issue, very natural. Huh? So, what distinguishes Devadatta as Devadatta in particular, individual? So, uh, when you say Devadatta, the universal is expressed in my mind. Devadatta is a word which can be used for so many hundreds of Devadattas, not only one Devadatta. But there is a person in the empirical world before me who is named Devadatta, and he is very much affiliated to me, attached to me. He is my friend. So I have my allegiance, interest with him. So the universal Devadatta is imposed on the particular, and by that imposition we know the particular Devadatta of my proximity, of my friendliness, of my concern. So the particular is no, I am not denying the particular. There is particular. So the world of doing and the world of knowing, we make a difference. So in the world of doing, there is the particular. But in world of knowing, there is universal that is revealed. And when how we know the particular, we know it on the basis of the imposition of the universal and the individual.
So one thing, see, Devadatta having lots of namesakes. Many people be called. There it doesn't make Devadatta to be a jati or a universal. It will be the bearing the same name as Devadatta, that can be a shareable property. But when you are talking about, Devadatta being a universal, which the whole Devadatta, he kind of has it, the same universal Devadatta going through each individual state of Devadatta, then that's a completely different scenario than, being the namesake of Devadatta. These are two different scenarios. So I was
So
not
see,
clear about the difference.
Russell in meaning and truth and meaning is also raised. When we say dog, what is the meaning of dog? Is it my dog, your dog, long dog, short dog? Yes, there's these issues. And come to know that dog means universal, but it is by imposition of the dog, which is pet of me or pet of you, I am familiar with, because of which the particular is also known. This is their philosophy.
Thank you so much, sir. Wait.
Sir, keeping in mind that we are having in the world the idea of changing and the people are changing from time to time. If, for example, a person is changing, I will give the most simple example that if a person wants to become other gender, then how the name can be still imposed to that person?
So you see, when I will utter that name after changing your gender, that name will indicate all the gender you are having in present. Because by language or by any way, your mind can know only in the present. Even the past and future also known in the present. So when I will say your name, you you change your gender, no problem. But at the present, it will indicate your present gender. But if I say that you were a lady earlier, it will indicate the lady gender. But when you are he, then it will indicate the masculine gender. So words are words are uh, determiner of the meaning. Words are determiner of the meaning. Nothing can determine the meaning. The external qualities are the qualities of things. They can determine the things outside. This we presume. But so far the meaning is concerned, it is awareness by nature. And meaning being awareness by nature can be determined only by language, by words. This is our, you may differ.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we have another question from online. Professor Ganesh Prasad Das sir raised the questions. Is it like Aristotelian position which is held by Professor Tiwari sir? I think. Is it your position like Aristotelian position?
Oh, I do not actually know much about the Aristotelian position. But if you will make me learn about the Aristotelian position, then I will evaluate if it is like Aristotelian position. So next time when I will be ready, I will reply it well. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Pardon me, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we can proceed to the next speaker, Professor Ranjan Kumar Phanda. He is the professor of philosophy, IIT Mumbai, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. He is so renowned. He has published several international and national, uh, several journal articles in national and international journals, as well as books, edited several number of books. Now he is going to present a important, I can consider it is very important paper because when I was writing the theme of the theme notes, I intended about something technology and translation and semantics, and Professor Ranjan Kumar Panda emphasized on that. So I am so grateful to sir, grateful to you, sir. Really, the topic is thought, content, and understanding. A discussion on technology, translation, and semantics. Now, sir, please use start your paper.
Uh, a respected chairperson and my teacher, Professor Asif Pradhan, my colleagues in the dais, the co-participants, Professor Tiwari, Dr. Singh, the esteemed professors, Professor Chakrabarti, Professor Pandey, Professor Maitra, and other learned scholars who are present here. I'm thankful to Dr. Rajiv for his kind invitation, and also the department for hosting this seminar on this auspicious day, Saraswati Puja Day. And we are all here to celebrate this auspicious occasion with this feast of a discussion or contemplation on meaning. So the title of my paper is Thought, Content, and Understanding. Um, in the proposal, seminar proposal, the synopsis, I found this interesting because there are many other philosophers name were mentioned which I'm not really acquainted with. So I thought maybe something can be written on this. So therefore I chose this. Not that the paper is well articulated, and but maybe your reflection also will enrich the paper. So I will read my paper, and when the time comes, please let me know what is the, how much time. 25 minutes. Communication is an integral part of our social existence. We not only communicate directly with other fellow human beings, rather, a large part of our communication today is performed through intelligent systems. Artificially designed systems like smartphones, PCs, robots have advanced technology to sense the intended speech content. The 21st century encounters a big shift from human to human communication to human to machine communication. This shift is largely driven by the use of technology in various domains of everyday life. We have been entirely living with technology. However, machine-centric communication is not free from challenges. All of us, at some time or other, struggled with our interaction with Alexa or Siri, who has sometimes left us with, with this response that I do not know. We know that intelligent systems such as Alexa, Siri depend on computed data, and being the learning machines, those computed data are helpful for building an interaction with us. Machine learning is controlled by certain algorithms or programs that run through an AI system. In brief, the algorithm is syntactically defined while encoding and decoding the data. And the system could be termed as syntactic engine. This phrase was used by Daniel Dennett, and he coined this term that we are all syntactic engine, following the discussion by Chomsky that there's a machine, and we could explain human linguistic ability from the point of view of computational theory of language. And this discussion on syntactic engine was initiated by Turing in 1950s. The Turing machine test advocated for the possibility of a digital computing system in the mid 20th century, and where Alan Turing conceptualized advancing computational technology and digitization of information processing. Turing machine test was a behavioral test and was simply programmed to manipulate symbols, and the technology was termed as symbol manipulating machine. While narrating the success stories of machine, Patricia and Paul Churchland write, I quote, we quote, initial results were positive. SM machines, which clever programs performed a variety of ostensibly cognitive activities. They respond to complex instructions, solved complex arithmetic and algebraic and tactical problems, played by the checkers and chess, proved theorems, and engaged in a simple dialogue. The performance continued to improve with the appearance of larger memories and faster machines with the use of longer and more cunning programs. Unquote. The symbol manipulation became central to the discourse of machine translation, which is carried out by certain algorithms or syntax based on which the program is designed for the machine. While translating a given input or or appropriate output, it exhibits carrying out certain cognitive functions. Simulation technology in 1970s were introduced later to make these machines functions more realistic. Large number of functions which has recursive application of rules and symbol manipulation, become the part of technology which was successfully carried out the program of visual recognition. With, with further advancement of technology, parallel processing systems were developed to meet certain expectations concerning machine learning. New technology has been added not only to expand the memories to the memories to store data and their faster retrieval or the real-time response mechanism. AI technology has been realized as a self-learning technology system that is functionally persistent and can compete with cognitive abilities of human beings. In this regard, the linguistic exchange during communication with an AI system like Alexa and Siri or smartphones that are used for translation or autocorrection, a mechanism was to show the cognitive competence of the machine. The notion of cognitive competence is a systemic specific function. For instance, what a calculator can do while adding huge numbers, or taking more time, or which takes more time for human beings to calculate. When it comes to all living beings, each one of us are cognitively competent with others, and this competence is basically for our survival. Human cognitive competence is much more complex when it comes to making a comparison between AI artifacts or robots and other living creatures on the earth. The complexity of AI systems can be conceptualized in two levels. Human beings develop AI systems with a complex algorithms and sophisticated technology at one level, and at another level, we are also interacting with them to realize our goals and ends. Thus, AI technology exhibits semantic ability at the second level of function, that is, their ability to receive our voices and instructions and process them adequately while assisting us in realizing our ends. With this brief introduction of these three concepts of translation, technology, and semantics, would like to focus on the analysis of semantic content, which was which is a very important part of this debate. We purposively engage and share content with fellow human beings and other artificial intelligence systems in our everyday social interactions. Content is an intentional and expressed in words and well articulated sentences. Every expression involves intentional content that is shared with artificial systems, particularly in the case of human machine communication. While highlighting the advent of human machine communication, Roland Saffer writes, we quote, indeed, speech is a significantly efficient way for humans to express ideas and desires. Therefore, it is not surprising that we have always wanted to communicate with and command our machines by voice. Surprisingly, a paradigm for this has been around for centuries. When machine began to be powered by draft animals, human discovered that same animals that provide the power for the machine also could provide enough intelligence to understand and act appropriately on voice commands. Unquote. Considering human machine engagement, which is largely linguistic, one tends to believe that machine do understand human linguistic expressions. That is to say, Alexa, Siri, like robots, make sense of our voices and commands when we attribute the notion of understanding to artificially intelligent systems, and many philosophical points come up when we talk about this, that machines understand us. On the background of this concept of machine being an intelligent system and could understand human beings, one could refer to two important theories developed by Chomsky's computational linguistics, where Chomsky talked about generative syntax and how syntax helps us translating our stimulus and making a response, linguistic response possible. I'll not go to discuss that. Maybe in the discussion we can take it up. Then Chomsky's computational linguistics later on was advanced by Fodor's computational theory of mind, and where Fodor tried to bring a hypothesis called the language of thought hypothesis, which came very close to computational theory of language. Fodor's consideration mainly centered around two basic concerns. First, they must specify the intentional content of mental states, and second, the symbolic structure of mental states must define the function of mental processes. The specification of intentional content describes the relationship between propositional attitudes and intentional content, and how the intentional semantic content of propositional attitude is incorporated into the mental states or the network of mental states. For Fodor, mental states are token neural states which are syntactically characterized. Semantics is not undermined in the Fodorian schema. Rather, the very function of the brain organism and the characterization of syntactic mental states are such that it has a specific mechanism that transforms the mental representation without affecting the content of propositional attitudes. This process is carried out by qua-language or language of thought. John Searle's response to these two critiques of critiques like Fodor and Chomsky, who said that the syntactical formulation of human cognition includes thinking, intending, saying, are driven by intentionality. Searle, according to Searle, intentionality is a feature of consciousness, and cognitive activities are defined by it. And human linguistic activities such as speaking or performing discloses that we are not only we not only express content of thoughts or mental states, but also mean what is being said. The content is meant in the sense that the speaker understands what is being said. The semantic content thus um, is part of the experience and is intentionally comprehended. So Searle, and many of us know that Searle in his famous Chinese room argument uh, criticized the computational theory of mind. Um, Now, keeping this in the background, we come to discuss two important texts here. One is um, by Dever, Kaplan and Dever, and the title of the book is "Making AI Intelligible: Philosophical Foundations," and David Chalmers' Reality Plus Plus. So, according to Kaplan and Dever, AI systems are intelligent systems, and we need to, we need to incorporate them or consider them as intelligent systems and give up our anthropocentric attitudes. That was the gist of the idea. Um, Kaplan and Dever maintain that in order to interpret AI and its content better, we need to let go certain anthropocentric biases. In the case of human language user or speaker, meaning raises in the form of life or the context in which the speaker is situated as a part of certain linguistic community. In the case of AI, or AI may be occupied and pasted into new hardware without any link to the original data set on which it was originally trained or even function without any adherence to the original intention of the coder or programmer. The approach that enables us to understand and improve our interaction with AI, according to Kaplan and Dever, is to take an externalist and de-anthropocentric positions. Hence, they argue that meta-semantic view via abstraction from human-specific details are necessary. In this connection, semantic facts pertain to the facts about the content of a particular word. Um, for example, the term dever in English refers to a person dever, which is a semantic fact. Meta-semantic facts, um, Professor Tiwari was arguing about proper names, so one could look at that from this meta-semantic facts. Meta-semantic facts can be understood as facts that explain why semantic facts are what they are. So the semantic fact dever refers to dever can be explained, for instance, by using Kripke's externalist analysis that name dever is a part of causal chain of uses that go back to dever. In this recent view, a metasemantic fact is understood as a fact that explains why metasemantic facts are the way they are. That is to say, why is the semantic fact that dever refers to dever explained via Kripken causal chain metasemantic analysis and not by some other account. Kaplan and Dever accept the metasemantic position is not as developed as present, but they argue that in order to improve our interaction with the understanding of AI, a way to go is to take methodological guidance from metasemantic framework to be able to abstract an AI suitable metasemantic theory from our present human-centric externalist or metasemantic views. So questions such as what role we would want the content should have, the specific details of AI systems and the role function of these AI systems in our social environment and our lives would become pertinent. Thus, their view in this regard is a metasemantic position. I quote Timothy Williamson, interpreter centric knowledge maximization, borrowed from Timothy Williamson as a guide to develop a theory about metasemantics or AI move towards an interpretable AI. Kaplan and Dever put forth, we quote, in other words, we are suggesting our metasemantic principles should be guided by metasemantic principle by a metasemantic principle that tells us to pick metasemantics that maximizes what we, the interpreters, end up knowing as a result of interpretive enterprise. Unquote. Williamson maintains that by applying the principle of charity advocated by Donald Davidson, one should aim to maximize the speaker's knowledge. Kaplan and Dever, however, apply this knowledge maximization Kaplan and Dever maximize interpret that this knowledge maximization is an important aspect of making AI a kind of a syntactic engine, sorry, semantic engine. Now, just a little brief about the simulation theory, which again comes up into the discourse in the work of David Chalmers, um, Reality Plus, Virtual World and the Problems of Philosophy. Attempts to, in this particular book, Chalmers talk about how we are living in a simulation. It is an interesting exercise in the emerging field of what Chalmers calls techno-philosophy, where one raises certain philosophical questions about technology and uses a new technology to resolve traditional philosophical issues. He views visual reality as a philosophical problem and argues in favor of the possibility of simulation. That is to say, he ultimately puts forth rather the controversial claim that it is very much possible that all of us exist in a simulation. And if so, then it cannot be logically neglected. So according to Chalmers, any virtual simulation or world can be real as any other thing we experience, though not quite confronting traditionally. The crux of this entire philosophical analysis in the book is essentially a position of virtual realism. Virtual reality is, in fact, a genuine reality. He writes, we quote, my guess is that within a century, we will have virtual realities that are indistinguishable from non-virtual world, unquote. Chalmers suggests that such a virtual simulation are not illusion but realities. For instance, a virtual object is not the same as physical object, but as both are real. Just as the ordinary physical table in our homes presently is made of woods, ultimately atoms. Similarly, a virtual table is real, made up of certain digital process. Another example could be that a digital book is real as physical one. This implies that as per Chalmers' position, it is possible that we can lead a full meaningful life in a virtual simulation, and what happens in this virtual world happens for real. For further even holds that it could be provided with an evidence that all of us might already be in such a virtual world or in simulation, and it is quite difficult to prove that we are not in a computer simulation, because any ordinary reality or experience could be simulated. We cannot which we cannot know. This has come to be known as the simulation hypothesis. Through such hypothesis, Chalmers can be interpreted as attempting to broaden the sense of the term real, or what we can think to be real, and the nature of reality. His arguments for the same seem logically convincing, though that raises certain worries and disturbances for human mind. I conclude my paper here, because I'm given the warning and it is already time. I am I I was supposed to mention in the beginning that this paper is co-authored by both of us. One of the postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Ankita, is the first author of the paper, and I am the second author of the paper. So I should have mentioned this in the beginning of the paper. Thank you very much for your patience. Listen.
Many thanks, sir, for your really interesting and very innovative way of putting or using semantics or discovering semantics through different devices. That's very interesting one and useful one for this era. Now we can open it for discussion.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much for the presentations, and it was very interesting when you explored many ideas. So far, I have heard about semantic theories, but first time I heard something meta semantics. So I am interested that these meta semantics are only referring in the case of machines, AI, Alexas, all that you mentioned, or what are they talking about? What is the emergence of these meta semantics? Could you explain it? Thank you.
collectively. Shall I answer one by one or? Yeah. The very question that why semantics is a necessity here is for them, for David Kaplan and Dever, is that how a particular term gets its meaning. So if you try to understand that, then you need to go back to um, its name or its use, and there is a kind of a causal link to which you can connect to that object. So, and this is how it has been followed in a computational system. So unless they talk about such a causal relation, then it is difficult to note what it means. No? So when you really program a particular thing, particular belief, or particular um, that who is Dever, let us say. If I'm writing something about Dever, then I have to compute all in details, about Dever. Okay. So that unless that causal chain is actually made, we will not get the meaning of what Dever stands for. So that requires meta semantics. Professor Maitra and Professor Sethi.
Hello, Professor Panda. Thanks for your very interesting and informative lecture. I just have a small discomfort, one or two, that I was worrying that understanding and meaning often requires, particularly after being exposed to what Wittgenstein says, that it requires a very long, prolonged and thick participation in forms of life. You did mention forms of life once. And for example, in order to understand mathematics, there may be always a contrast which has to be, thick, contrast like the children may be disposed to look upon things as natural occurrences, as causal occurrences, which they learn to freeze into mathematical closures. Now, this long, tortuous history has to be there before mathematical language, mathematics is to be learned. This history is not present in the case of machine learning or the machine performance of mathematical operations. This history of freezing causation into mathematical closures, this is not there. And secondly, when you were talking about, uh, you know, running the risk of being computer simulated, there, if we express this doubt that I may be computer simulated, then, I mean, this is of course a very predictable and a very protocol kind of question that I may be simulated, then within that I, there has to be some kind of certainty. So these are my two.
Yeah. Yes. There was a section which I actually could not read. No, when I started with this idea that we're all machine is a syntactic engine, and Dennett had put a very interesting response in his writings on consciousness explained, um, also in the intentional stance, that Wittgenstein's idea that if a lion can speak, what will happen? So Dennett's response was that we will understand lion better. Um, so, so that uh, concept of understanding is a very important concept. That when we try to talk about natural occurrences, and try to see that how those can be computed uh, to make a better game for the child is a different way of understanding game. But when we consider you know initiating a new game in our human form of life, which Wittgenstein is actually thinking that how human forms of life is different than animals or lions forms of life. He says, I mean, so meaning can be only conceptualized for Wittgenstein within a human form of life, which is not possible otherwise. Um, but if you, I mean, so that's a big gap between a computational linguist or those who are arguing in favor of a computational theory of mind. Um, but since technology is actually dominating our life, and most of our activities are always in a sense been computed. So if this voice has been recorded, it is already going to to some data either locally or globally. Somewhere it has been stored. So the very fact that we have been putting information in such a place, or whether we will call that as a garbage or a useful one, it depends on us how we interpret. Uh,
That machine is overpowering language. That excess, which is, I mean, that this itself cannot be written.
Machines do represent, say for example, in some cases where, say for example, when we use, let us say, GPS, or we use credit score, whether you are, if you go to a bank and seek loan, they would see whether what is your credit score, and your credit score is a digital score that determines whether you will be given loan or not. So we are already in a living in a world where most of our activities, economical activities or economic exchanges that we do in our everyday life is part of that world. So it is machine's decision. So the banker will see what is the score, and depending on the score, he will decide that whether he will be given loan or not. So his decisions are not really humanistic, and the way we think. I think he should be the last person. No, another is asked.
Thank you, Professor Fonda. Your discussion is very brilliant and it's a thought-provoking. It's a new dimension, no doubt. And so, just I am need some clarification within the Chomskyan framework, the syntactic description or generative grammar. In this connection, how artificial intelligence and communication is possible in this framework. Please give some hints.
No, Chomsky himself calls it a computational theory of language. So he says the way a computer functions, no, it depends on the algorithm, the program that which is written, and it is all syntactic according to him. And he brings that analogy to explain how human mind really functions. How do we acquire language? So Chomsky calls this as a computational theory of language. He says human linguistic activities can be better explained with the analogy of the way the computer functions. Yes. I mean, the generative syntax is an innate ability for human beings. I mean, in the case of human beings, it is universal. Everyone has the ability to comprehend language and no that way. So yes.
So now regarding this the machine that helps us to understand something. If we consider Alexa or say Siri, usually we say that Alexa, can you switch on the TV or go to the Google or something like that? Alexa does it. So what the algorithm people are saying, mostly computer scientists, they say that it's just the word that hits it and therefore it searches. It doesn't look for a meaning. Whether if we say that look at the YouTube or something, just let's say Joy Sri Ram. So without understanding what it means, Joy Sri Ram, it just opened the YouTube. Similarly, Siri. Suppose I say that Siri, hey, can you take me to the Shiva temple? So just Shiva, just the word itself, some kind of algorithm. It doesn't give a meaning for them to understand. In that context, in the today time, we know that Tesla is a car that doesn't have a driver, but it rides on the road. Now, if the car goes on, it is made with algorithm, but it doesn't have a cognitive abilities to understand whether this road has to go in at this speed or that speed. It's altogether the sensor that is fixed in all the part inside and outside that determines in the form of algorithm. So therefore, my question is that in what context, how does a driverless car have cognitive abilities to encode and decode the meaning of the environment? As a result, it can move on a road with a particular direction. Thank you.
I mean, was there any question you say? You yourself have answered, is not it? So this computational abilities to sense, now the senses are basically sensing whether is there any object available nearby. Okay. So once they are able to sense, so the car is already programmed to sense the object, is not it? So there are sensors. So how is it that it making sense? Exactly. See this the point that which Professor Tiwari was also making. How we make sense of a name using universals, and the computer will make sense of the object, whether objects are available or not, in their own way. So what you will call them? You have to give some way, some explanation, is not it? Huh? No, that's the difficulty. Whether we say that the computer means this or not, or we give some name. But the point is, how does a system or a human being make sense of things? How do we know things? I think that's the very fundamental question. Now, whether the system is doing it in that way or not, I mean, we all know how it has been programmed, and so we can only say that there are two different theories. But whether which theory is better explaining the case is, I think, that is where we are. We do not know whether which theory is better. We can only say that there are two theories. Yes.
Hello. Sir, I have just a small query. Taking further the discussion which Professor Sethi questioned on, I was willing to add here, sir, or know that just like we people in our day-to-day conversation, we take a guess, right? For example, even if the voice is not very clear of the communicator who is talking to us or conversating with us, we guess and we reply, thinking or assuming that what the person is trying to say. Sometimes what happens when we are talking to any chat bot or we are giving instructions, they either hear us incorrectly or they assume just like we assume, and they start replying a very different out of the context answer. It happens quite many times. So what can we do, or what can the AI developers do here when they are setting the algorithms to function the AI in a proper way? Because it needs and requires utmost clarity, either verbal clarity or syntactic or semantic clarity. So what you have to say on this, sir? Because this is a very big question, and still people are like struggling with this. So I just want your opinion on this, sir. Thank you.
I do not know. I mean, we at least know that we are all human beings, and we also make a, a distinction between robots and humans. Uh, but think of the societies where robots are teachers, and after few years of such, you know, living in that society, how are these children will react to human beings? How are they will react? We know that human beings can teach us, and while teaching, we not only engage them intellectually but also emotionally. Is not it? Now conceptualize a world, or there are societies where you all know that computers or robots are teachers. So what kind of society we are making when we say that now human beings can be replaced by computers? So I think that's the challenge of the future society. Welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. It became so interesting and interactive in nature. So we can proceed to the next speaker, Dr. Niti Singh, Assistant Professor of this department. She has also published several articles in reputed journals as well as many other academic activities. So we can invite her to present her paper.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajibu. घोर रूपे महारावे सर्व शत्रु भयंकरी भक्तेभ्यो वरदे देवी त्राहि मां शरणागतम्। ओम सुरासुरार्चिते देवी सिद्ध गंधर्व सेविते जाड्या पाप हरे देवी त्राहि मां शरणागतम्। बसंत पंचमी की शुभकामनाओं के साथ मैं नीति सिंह सभागार में उपस्थित सभी विद्वजनों को नमस्कार करती हूँ। So here I am to present my paper on the topic levels of meaning and relevance of Nyaya philosophy to contemporary discussion on meaning. Time is not much, so I'm not sure how much I can speak on, but still, a lot has been said by various great scholars, and a lot will be said by upcoming scholars in parallel sessions as well on semantics and philosophy of language. But here, I am to direct your attention towards a very crucial aspect of our discussion, that is exploring levels of meaning. While other participants are delving into various fascinating topics, I believe that understanding levels of meaning is paramount for a comprehensive grasp of semantics. So we have already heard Professor Sain on how do we know or understand what people say. And we know that to understand what people say and communicate in a better way, we must know how meaning is derived or assigned. So there must be some rules or systems to decide the meaning. And my presentation will throw a light on this known as levels of meaning. So I start with a hope and belief that Nyaya philosophy of language has the potential to address various issues related to semantics, such as whether terms like God, Brahman, and absolute are meaningless, as logical positivists claimed, or purely emotive. Or questions such as, can reductionism be accepted? And questions like whether transformationally equivalent sentences have the same meaning, and many others. But I'm taking here Professor Jayashankar Lal Shaw's view of Navya Nyayik, and he has very logically and successfully established through his works that Indian philosophy, especially Nyaya philosophy, can answer some of the crucial problems of Western philosophy. For example, the three questions I just mentioned, can be answered by Nyayikas as follows. Very briefly, I'll go with this. In response to the first question, they will say that Brahman, God, or absolute are not considered meaningless, as logical positivist claimed. Neither are they purely emotive. Rather, these terms have suggestive meanings, and propositions about them are not treated as true or false, although they are meaningful expressions. So this will be the first response of Nyayikas to the question whether the term like Brahman, God, or absolute has any meaning at all. Second, reductionism is rejected by Nyayikas because it goes against our ordinary usages. Third, transformationally equivalent sentences do not have the same meaning because in the Nyaya tradition, the transformation does not preserve the meaning. For example, अगर हम कहें कि Brutus killed Caesar or Caesar was killed by Brutus, do they have the same meaning? व्याकरणी या जो व्याकरण के लोग हैं वो कहेंगे शायद yes, they have the same meaning, but Nyayikas will say no, they do not have the same meaning. Even if they are transformationally equivalent, they do not have the same meaning. So Bhutale Ghatah and Ghatavat Bhutalam both have the different meanings as per the Nyaya tradition. And why is that? We have to go into the detail. And Navya Nyayika's positions are because the relation goes with the predicate. So this is a very deep analysis. I'm not going into that, keeping the time in mind. I will not address all these questions, but focus on the levels of meaning that, if understood properly, can help to resolve such issues. And at last, we'll try to answer to logical positivist that the term Brahma or absolute is not meaningless. So that's my objective through this paper. We know that the adherents of Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Nyaya have endeavored to elucidate sentence meanings through primary or secondary connotations or by considering syntactic expectancy, that is akanksha. However, there arises skepticism regarding the adequacy of such approaches in explicating the meanings of metaphysical or religious expressions like Brahman or God. Furthermore, grappling with the meaning in literary context, the uses of mantras like Vedic mantras or delving into deep structural implications proves challenging when solely relying on primary or secondary connotations of terms within a sentence. Primary or secondary here means जिसे हम शक्ति या अभिधा कहते हैं, that is primary meaning, and जिसे हम secondary connotations या secondary meaning कह रहे हैं, that is lakshana. So the meaning of sentences or words cannot be understood in only the two levels of abhidha and lakshana. So Professor Shaw has posited that the meaning of an expression can be examined across 6 levels, and these levels are etymological, जिसे हम व्युत्पत्ति मूलक कह सकते हैं, conventional, that is actually lakshana, डीप स्ट्रक्चरल जिसके बारे में पाणिनि ने भी बात की है और चॉम्स्की भी बात करते हैं, दैट इज कारक रिलेटेड, जहां पे वर्ब को देख के हम लोग समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली द मीनिंग. देन कॉजल यानी कारण से संबंधित, कारण मूलक कह सकते हैं, जिसकी बात स्पीच एक्ट में जेल ऑस्टिन वगैरह करते हैं, या जिसकी बात हम लोग मंत्र उच्चारण करते समय करते हैं कि द टर्म्स कैन नॉट बी एक्सचेंज विद अदर टर्म्स, क्योंकि अगर आप भले ही सिनोनिमस टर्म रख देते हैं, पर अगर मंत्रों में एक शब्द की जगह दूसरा शब्द जो कि उसी रेफरेंट को बता रहा होगा, फिर भी वो फलीभूत नहीं होगा, क्योंकि आपको उसमें उन्हीं शब्दों का प्रयोग करना है जो वहां पर बताए गए हैं. सो दैट इज कॉजल. मेटाफोरिकल एंड सजेस्टिव डायमेंशंस. मेटाफोरिकल एंड सजेस्टिव डायमेंशंस की बात हम लोग करेंगे, जिसमें लक्षणा और व्यंजना की बात की जाती है. सो एडिशनली दीज लेवल्स, सॉरी, मुझे लगता है मैंने कन्वेंशनल को लक्षणा कह दिया. कन्वेंशनल इज एक्चुअली द मुख्यार्थ, लक्षणा दैट इज मेटाफोरिकल. सो additionally these levels may be hierarchically organized and underscoring the complexity inherent in semantic analysis. So we should take a look or take a tour of all these 6 levels of meaning so that our students can grasp well that how the meanings are assigned or how the meanings are understood. So एक एक करके हम लोग बहुत ब्रीफ में कोशिश करेंगे इसको देखने की, समझने की. So सबसे पहले etymological level की बात करते हैं. The interpretation of a word's meaning often involves analyzing its verbal and nominal components, including roots जिन्हें हम धातु कहते हैं, suffixes यानी कि प्रत्यय, and prefixes उपसर्ग. तो यदि आपको किसी शब्द का अर्थ समझना है, किसी वाक्य में कोई शब्द आया है, उसका मीनिंग समझना है, तो हमें दो तीन चीजें देखनी पड़ती हैं. किस धातु से वो आ रहा है, उसमें क्या उपसर्ग लगा है, क्या प्रत्यय लगा है, और उसके आधार पर हम उसका एक व्युत्पत्ति मूलक अर्थ निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं. ये प्राइमरी लेवल है किसी भी शब्द के अर्थ को समझने का. सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग, एटिमोलॉजिकल मीनिंग. जैसे कि एग्जाम्पल के लिए हम कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स यहाँ पे लिए, जैसे पाचक. सो पाचक पच धातु से आता है, ठीक है. पच धातु का मतलब क्या होता है, टू कुक, पकाना. और इसमें जो सफिक्स है, जो प्रत्यय है, वो अक प्रत्यय है, और इसका मतलब हुआ एजेंट. सो पाचक मतलब द वन हु कुक्स, यानी पकाने वाला. तो ऐसे हम अर्थ निकालते हैं. जैसे एक शब्द लेते हैं समान. सो समान फॉर इंस्टेंस हम कह सकते हैं कि समान विच कैन डिनोट टू मीनिंग्स. ठीक है, कैसे? अगर धातु अलग है, प्रत्यय अलग है, तो अर्थ बदल जाएगा. समान के ही दो अर्थ हो सकते हैं. वो क्या क्या हो सकते हैं? वन ऑफ द वाइटल एयर्स, जिसमें हम लोग जहाँ प्राण समान उदान, ठीक है. तो पंचवायु में से जो समान वायु है वो एक अर्थ बनेगा. वो कब अर्थ बनेगा? जबकि सम के साथ अन लगेगा. और अगर हम इसी समान को मेजर के लिए यूज कर लेते हैं, जबकि हम मान प्रत्यय लगा दें और स धातु ले लें, तो हैविंग द सेम मेजर, अर्थ बदल गया. सेम शब्द, लेकिन उनके धातु, प्रत्यय या उपसर्ग अलग होने से उनके अर्थ बदल जाते हैं. इन सब का जो विवेचन है, जो डिस्क्रिप्शन है, वो एटिमोलॉजिकल लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग में किया जाता है. सो दैट इज द वेरी फर्स्ट लेवल. सेकेंड लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग इज कन्वेंशनल लेवल. Okay, sir, I'll try. Conventional meaning of an expression is contingent. ये contingent होता है, and depends on the intention of the name giver, जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं रूढ़ि मूलक अर्थ. कुछ शब्द है जो हम रूढ़िगत तरीके से डिसाइड कर देते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, किसी व्यक्ति का नाम रख दिए पाचक, ठीक है, पाचक लाल, या पाचक कुछ भी. किसी रेस्टोरेंट का नाम रख दिया, किसी वस्तु का, अपने हमने जानवर का नाम रख दिया पाचक. सो इस तरीके के जो कन्वेंशनल मीनिंग होते हैं, जो हम दे देते हैं और उसका अर्थ उसी वस्तु से लगाते हैं, दैट इज दी कन्वेंशनल लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग. जैसे घट पट डिथ इत्यादि, सर ने इसकी बात कर दी है, सो आई वॉन्ट गो इन टू डिटेल. लेकिन ये कन्वेंशनल मीनिंग आते कहाँ से हैं, कितने तरीकों से हम लोग सीखते हैं, इसके बारे में न्यायिकों का न्यायिक जो है उनका कहना है कि वृद्ध व्यवहार यानी ऑब्जर्विंग यूसेस बाय एल्डर्स, आप्तवाक्य, reliance on trustworthy statements, व्याकरण that is grammar, उपमान यानी analogy, कोश यानी dictionary, वाक्य शेष यानी contextual clues, and विवृत्ति that is explanation. Also सिद्ध पद सानिध्य यानी कि proximity to known reference, जो reference हम already जानते हैं उसके proximity में जो आता है सिद्ध पद सानिध्य. इनसे हम conventional meaning सीखते हैं, समझते हैं, जिसमें कि वृद्ध व्यवहार सबसे रिलायबल और फर्स्ट सोर्स है हमारा, क्योंकि हम लैंग्वेज ही सीखते हैं ऐसे. हमारे मम्मी पापा, घर के लोग, टीचर्स जिस तरीके से बात करते हैं, जिन शब्दों को, जिस रेफरेंस को जिस रेफरेंस से बताते हैं, उसी क्रम में हम सीख लेते हैं वो लैंग्वेज. द थर्ड लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग इज डीप स्ट्रक्चरल लेवल. दिस इज अ वेरी डीप, अ काइंड ऑफ टफ एंड कॉम्प्लेक्स एज वेल. इसमें क्या होता है कि जैसे पाणिनि के सिंटैक्स और सिमेंटिक्स की हम बात करते हैं, सो उसमें कुछ डिस्टिंग्विशेस हैं लेवल्स को लेके, जैसे कि डीप स्ट्रक्चरल लेवल क्या है और सरफेस स्ट्रक्चरल लेवल क्या है. जो बच्चे चॉम्स्की को या पाणिनि को पढ़े हैं वो इस चीज को समझ सकते हैं, ठीक है. तो स्टॉल एंड कृपास्की describe in their paper entitled Syntactic and Semantic Relations in Parini. That paper was published in Foundations of Language in 1969, and they describe Parini's grammar as a set of rules converting semantic representations into phonetic ones through intermediate deep and surface structures mirroring generative grammars, deep structure and surface structures level. यहाँ पर एक क्रम मिलता है, जिस क्रम की बात अभी फिलहाल हमारे पास टाइम कम है तो आई कैन नॉट गो इनटू डिटेल, बट आपको ये लेवल समझ लेना है कि सिमेंटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशंस होंगे, फिर डीप स्ट्रक्चर होगा, फिर सरफेस स्ट्रक्चर होगा, और उसके बाद फोनोलॉजिकल रिप्रेजेंटेशंस होंगे. सो इसमें कारक का बड़ा महत्व है. कारक को देख के हम समझते हैं कि इसका क्या अर्थ निकालना है. जैसे मैं एक एग्जाम्पल लूंगी कि राम चावल पका रहा है, ठीक है. इसको कारक के हिसाब से पाणिनि तीन तरीके से बात कर सकते हैं. कहेंगे कि रामः तंडुलम पचति, रामेन तंडुलः पच्यते एंड रामः तंडुलस्य पक्ता। तीन बातें कही। पहला क्या है कि राम जो है वो चावल पका रहा है, राम कुक्स राइस। दूसरे में कह रहे राइस इज कुक्ड बाय राम, एक्टिव एंड पैसिव वॉइस में समझ लेते हैं। थर्ड इज अ डिफरेंट वे टू से राम इज द कुकिंग एजेंट फॉर राइस। व्याकरणिक कहेंगे तीनों का सेम मीनिंग है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर हम कैसे अर्थ निकाल रहे हैं, कारक को देखकर ये डिसाइड कर रहे हैं कि ये सिमिलैरिटी है कि नहीं इक्विवेलेंस ऑफ मीनिंग में। ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कारक ऑफ अ टर्म सिग्निफाइड phonologically reveals its role whether as agent, object, goal or location. For instance, the kartri or agent karak is represented by instrumental case, active voice of verbs or affixes at the surface structural level, just like we have seen in these three variations of the same thing or the same meaning. Also, the causal level of meaning, the fourth one, इसमें वैदिक मंत्रों का या शब्दों का स्थान का उच्चारण हम लोग करते हैं, जिसके बारे में जस्ट हमने ब्रीफली बात की है। एक एग्जांपल देंगे, हाउ टू डू थिंग्स विद वर्ड्स में जेएल ऑस्टिन ने कहा था, जो उनका परलोक्यूशनरी स्पीच एक्ट का उदाहरण है कि हम जो शब्द वहां पर यूज करते हैं उनको हम रिप्लेस नहीं कर सकते। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर वो कहते हैं कि आई टेक दिस वुमन टू बी माई वेडेड वाइफ वाइल द मैरिज सेरेमनी, किसी व्यक्ति की शादी हो रही है और वो ये कह रहा है कि आई टेक दिस वुमन एज माई वेडेड वाइफ और टू बी माई वेडेड वाइफ। यहाँ पे वुमन का मतलब होता है एडल्ट फीमेल, बट द पर्सन कैन नॉट से आई टेक दिस एडल्ट फीमेल एज माई वेडेड वाइफ। मीनिंग खत्म हो जाएगा और शायद वो जो सेरेमनी है वो कंप्लीट भी नहीं माना जाएगा। तो परलोक्यूशनरी स्पीच एक्ट के थ्रू हम लोग कॉजल लेवल ऑफ मीनिंग को देखने की कोशिश करते हैं कि व्हाट एग्जैक्टली द कारण और कार्य कारण संबंध इन दैट वर्ड व्हिच it tries to convey the meaning or to kind of describe the act or perform any function or action. So is level pe hum causal level ko dekhte hain, skipping so many things. Come to the metaphorical level. Nearly all Indian philosophies and philosophical schools incorporate this metaphorical level in their discussions of meaning that we all know. So this level of meaning is distinct from conventional or etymological meanings. जो मेटाफोरिकल है वो कन्वेंशनल भी नहीं है, यानी मुख्यार्थ नहीं है, अभिधा नहीं है, साथ ही साथ वो व्युत्पत्ति मूलक अर्थ भी नहीं होता है। इसके कई सारे एग्जांपल्स हम लोग ले सकते हैं टू अंडरस्टैंड सेंटेंसेस लाइक द विलेज इज ऑन द गैंजेस, गंगायाम घोष, या देवदत्त इज अ लायन, सिंहो देवदत्त। सो इनके मेटाफोरिकल मीनिंग्स हम लोग देखते हैं कि इनके क्या एटिमोलॉजिकल मीनिंग है, उससे बिल्कुल हटके कोई अलग अर्थ होता है। मुझे लगता है कि आप सारे लोग इस लक्षणा से परिचित हैं, इसलिए इस पे डिटेल में अभी हम नहीं जाएंगे। एंड पीपल क्लासिफाई मेटाफोरिकल मीनिंग इन डिफरेंट वेज बेस्ड ऑन हाउ दे रिलेट टू द रेगुलर मीनिंग और हाउ मच ऑफ द ओरिजिनल मीनिंग दे कीप। सो सम आर्ग्यू दैट मेटाफोर अप्लाइज जस्ट टू वर्ड्स और होल सेंटेंसेस, और इस पर बहुत सारा भी डिबेट है। But next, come to the last level of meaning. So Professor Shah has suggested 6 levels of meaning, and these levels of meanings get applied to both the Indian and Western context. So this 6th level, suggestive level, is very, very important because this will kind of justify how Brahman or God or absolute is not completely meaningless expression. It has a meaning, but it does not refer to any entity. It does not refer to any particular object or thing or person. So that's why this is very, very important. Now, some Indian philosophers have introduced the suggestive level alongside the metaphorical level, recognizing that meaning in literature, religion, and metaphysics often transcend conventional explanations. Certain philosophers view metaphorical meaning as a precursor to suggestive meaning and creating a hierarchy among these levels. For instance, the sentences like Gangayam Ghoshah may suggest characteristics like coolness, यानी बहुत शीतल जगह है, sacredness, पवित्रता है, and pity among its inhabitants और suitability of a journey, की बहुत अच्छी जगह आप जा सकते हैं, एकदम गंगा पे बसा है, ऐसे. Literary critics distinguish suggestive meaning from metaphorical meaning, noting instances where the former doesn't rely on the latter. For example, the sun has set. अगर हमने कहा कि सूर्य अस्त हो गया, सूर्यास्त हो गया, and this could imply various actions like this is time to cook or this is time to meet our beloved. So this is सूर्य खत्म हो गया, अस्त हो गया, मेरा टाइम खत्म हो गया सॉरी एंड एंगेजिंग इन वर्शिप लाइक कि संध्या का समय है तो हमारे पूजा का टाइम हो गया कुछ भी मीन कर सकते हैं जस्ट बाय सेइंग द सन हैज सेट इट मींस देयर आर डिफरेंट मीनिंग्स ये सारे सजेस्टिव मीनिंग्स हैं and the Vedas also emphasize suggestive meaning cautioning against understanding only literal or metaphorical meanings so I'm skipping so many things and just I'm trying to establish that since Brahman or the term Brahman does not denote any individual or a particular entity, it cannot be classified as a proper name. So proper name Sir just has mentioned through his presentation. So I'm not going to tell about this or a definite description. So consequently, it is neither a general nor a singular term, rendering it seemingly devoid of reference. And some philosophers like logical positivists contend that it lacks meaning altogether. However, an alternative perspective posits that Brahman embodies suggestive meaning. Suggestive meaning here means that it is hinting at lofty ideals such as bliss, freedom, or pure knowledge. So these terms are evaluative or prescriptive. And the expressions like Tattvamasi suggest that realization of these ideals, underscoring the necessity of suggestive meaning in religious or metaphysical discourse, where language serves that to illustrate rather than merely articulate. So these terms represents ideal achievable to varying extents, and we should not take it for granted that this is just a term expressing nothing. It is completely meaningless. It is completely, you know, uh, not acceptable at all, and we should not utter such terms. No, there is nothing like that. They are meaningful expressions, but what kind of meaning they possess? Suggestive meaning. And that suggestive level of meaning is very, very important to resolve so many questions, so many vagueness, ambiguity, and problems existing in our language, and because of which we understood that all these terms are referring towards some entities, existing entities. No, they are not always referring towards some proper name or definite descriptions. Rather, they are having some suggestive meaning and representing some ideals which are achievable and which are graspable. By saying this, I'm just stopping here. I had some more to say, but sorry, due to time, I couldn't complete it. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maz, for again putting some interesting ideas here. So now it's open for discussion, but I can expect only one question. You.
Ma'am, like
Very brief.
you were coming to the point of the meaning of Brahman. But if we are talking about the level at the meaning of the level at the level of language, I guess if we are seeing the Advaita Vedanta or if we are going to the deep of the religious meanings, then I guess we cannot describe the meaning of Brahman by the language. We are trying to see these types of the 6 levels of meanings, but I guess this is something beyond this all this. We are using these types of the levels and we are trying to understand as an instrument, but the real meaning is beyond all these things.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for your question. But first thing, it was not as per the Vedantic point of view. It was as per the Navya Nyayika's point of view, especially what Professor Jaishankar Lal Shah has established. So, in his opinion and in the opinion of Navya Nyayikas, it is nothing like that. What you are understanding or what Vedantins have to say on this. So, this question will not, suffices here, because when we ask any question, the question should be treated within the system and the answer should come out of that system only. So if this is Nyaya, the answer will be given through the Nyaya perspective only. So Nyaya will not agree with this.
No.
When we say Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadasayata Tattva Samanvayat. So here the idea of Brahman is not prescriptive or suggestive. The idea of Brahman is very much factual there. So she is actually countering your thesis.
I'm
And that is
understanding.
why she wants you to respond from Nyaya point of view, whether you can actually respond this thesis or not. Thank you.
See, I don't think like there is any fact like Brahman. This is an ideal, and I believe also, I feel that it is an ideal, and by accepting the Brahman or God, we are just trying to kind of instigate people, motivate them, inspire them to be a good person, to achieve those properties, whatever we tag with that Brahman, like Satchit Ananda. So we want to make people the truth speakers or truth possessors, or to a conscious being, or to a blissful entity. So it has suggestive meaning, and I'm somehow in agreement with this. That's why I have raised this issue, and that's why I have presented this paper. So I'm very much in agreement with this. I don't think this is a fact. There is some proper or individual entity like Brahman or God. No, I don't believe in this. But yes, I believe in the concept of God. Why? Because it has a suggestive meaning. It helps us to achieve some ideals. It helps us to become a better person. It helps us to grapple with our insecurities, to our fears, to so many challenges in our life. That's why I believe in the concept of God. I believe in the concept of Brahman, but not as an individual or as an entity which is sitting somewhere, which is looking on us or doing something like that. No, it is just I know, but actually I'm taking all these three terms all together. The Brahman, God, or absolute. So I have used the term or between these terms, so that even if you are considering the God or Brahman or absolute or any such terms or entities like that, they all have suggestive meaning. That's my take on this. Thank you.
Just Gandhi, put.
धन्यवाद मैम। आपका व्याख्यान हमेशा से लाभप्रद रहा है। मेरा क्वेश्चन है, ब्रह्म को अव्याख्या के रूप में कहा जाता है, कारणातीत है, वो प्रयोजन विहीन है। तंत्रालोक में 9 में लिखा गया, स्वतंत्र भाषित भीता प्रपंच था, प्रविभज्यते चिदानंदेशना ज्ञान के कारण सुस्पष्टतः। और शब्द के लिए शब्द ब्रह्मन के रूप में हमने कई बार सुना, शब्द ब्रह्मन है। तो जो शब्द ब्रह्मन है वो अव्याख्या है, और आपने मिडिल फेज में अपने व्याख्यान में ये भी कहा कि हम किसी भी चीज को कारण से ही जानते हैं। तो जब कारण विहीन है, प्रयोजन विहीन है ब्रह्म, तो उसको हम शब्द ब्रह्मन कैसे कह रहे हैं, उसको मुझे समझने की आवश्यकता है।
देखिए, हमने एक बात की कि ये जो 6 लेवल्स हैं, इनमें एक हायरार्की स्टेब्लिश की गई है। हायरार्की स्टेब्लिश करने का मतलब ये है कि सबसे पहले जब किसी शब्द का आप अर्थ निकालने की चेष्टा करेंगे, तो आप सबसे पहला जो लेवल फॉलो करेंगे वो आपका व्युत्पत्ति मूलक लेवल होगा। तो पहले स्तर पर हम उसका एटिमोलॉजिकल मीनिंग डिराइव करेंगे। अगर वो एटिमोलॉजिकल मीनिंग उस शब्द के साथ जा रहा है तो हम उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेंगे और दूसरे स्टेप पर जाने की हमें जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। लेकिन हमने देखा कि एटिमोलॉजिकल मीनिंग से तो ये अर्थ बन ही नहीं रहा है जो ये मीन करना चाहता है, तो हम दूसरे लेवल पर जाएंगे। दूसरे लेवल पर जाएंगे तो हम कन्वेंशनल मीनिंग, उसका रूढ़िगत अर्थ देखेंगे कि रूढ़ि में या प्रचलन में इस शब्द का क्या अर्थ है, इसका रेफरेंट क्या है। उस रेफरेंट को जो हमारा स्पेसियो कल्चरल या सोशल जो सेटअप होगा, जो सूप होगा, उसमें देखने की कोशिश करेंगे। वहां पर भी अगर ये अर्थ आपको लगता है कि नहीं बन रहा है, तब आप उससे थोड़ा और ऊपर जाएंगे और दूसरे लेवल पर जाएंगे। यानी कन्वेंशनल के बाद आप जाएंगे कारक वाले अर्थ पे, डीप स्ट्रक्चरल पे जाएंगे। वहां भी नहीं बना, यानी कारकों को देखकर, विभक्तियों को देखकर, समास विग्रह इत्यादि के द्वारा भी अगर अर्थ नहीं बना, तब आप कॉजल मीनिंग पे जाएंगे कि ये एक्चुअली परफॉर्म क्या कर रहा है, कौन सा फंक्शन कर रहा है। वहां के बाद भी अगर कुछ नहीं बना, तब आप मेटाफोरिकल लेवल पे जाएंगे कि ये इसकी लक्षणा क्या बन रही है, मेटाफोरिकली किस चीज को डिनोट कर रहा है। और वहां भी यदि अर्थ नहीं बना, तो अल्टीमेटली द लास्ट लेवल विल बी द सजेस्टिव लेवल। तब लास्ट में आप कहेंगे कि ये सारे अर्थ तो ये बना ही नहीं रहा है, या जो ये मीन करना चाहता है उसके अर्थ यहाँ 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 तो मिल नहीं रहे हैं। तब आप कहेंगे कि ये सिर्फ सजेस्टिव है, प्रिस्क्रिप्टिव है, क्योंकि ये किसी आइडियल को सजेस्ट कर रहा है और ये कहीं ना कहीं चाहता है कि हम उस आइडियल को ग्रैस्प करें, अचीव करें। तो इस तरीके से हम एक एक लेवल पर जाने की कोशिश करते हैं। बाकी शब्द के ऊपर या ब्रह्म के ऊपर मेरा कुछ कहने का मंतव्य नहीं था। मैं सिर्फ उन लोगों को रिस्पॉन्ड करना चाहती थी जो लोग कहते हैं कि ब्रह्म या एब्सोल्यूट या गॉड कंप्लीटली मीनिंगलेस है। मैं नहीं ऐसा कह रही हूँ, मैं कह रही हूँ कि इसमें मीनिंग है, पर किस तरह की मीनिंग है। तो अगर आप सजेस्टिव लेवल को मानते हैं तो डजंट मैटर आप क्या हैं, किस पॉलिटिकल थॉट से आते हैं, किस रिलीजियस थॉट से आते हैं, आप इन शब्दों को कभी भी निरर्थक नहीं कहेंगे, उनके अर्थ मानेंगे, उनमें आइडियल्स को आरोपित करते हुए। दैट्स माय ओपिनियन।
धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू।
Now I would like to request the chairperson to preside the session.
Friends, we are really rushing for time, so I will not take much time. I will just thank all the three speakers who have really very nicely made presentations this morning. And I have no real intention to comment on any paper, only to highlight the points that I have made, and that must be really something which is relevant for our discussion or for our future discussion. Professor Tiwari has really talked about Bhartrihari's view of proper names, and he has rightly made the idea that every proper name, though it stands for an individual, refers to an individual, but the individual is already within a universe of discourse. That is, a universal is very much appropriately instantiated by the individual. So this goes well with the idea that, as Frege suggested in the Western philosophy, that the proper names also have sense and also reference. So reference is not possible without sense. So I think Bhartrihari has made a very significant point, and Professor Tiwari has brought it out. And thank you, Professor Tiwari, for this excellent presentation. Professor Panda has opened up a new dimension to our semantic studies by bringing the machine systems into our recognition. In fact, this is the age when we are confronted with machine systems of all variety. A computer is the first variety which is with us, and also the smartphones, then Siri and Alexa, many more computer systems. How do you really understand them? What is their language? Does that machine language have a semantics or not? Do they also carry meaning in those languages? Also, there is meaning or not? So these questions are very pertinent, and perhaps we have to address these questions in future understanding of semantics. And as he referred to the idea of anthropological biases, I think being human, we cannot get rid of these biases. Let us not call them biases. This is the way we human beings think. And if human language is going to be either sacrificed for a machine language, I don't know where we'll end. So I think human language will remain the basic language, and machine language will be derivative language. And you have rightly pointed out that there is basic intentionality or primary intentionality which human beings alone have. Machines can have a derivative intentionality. I think the difference between man and machine will ever bother the philosophers, and I, for one, will stand for man rather than the machine. Anyway, whatever the AI people do, that is the future humanity will decide. Anyway, thank you, Professor Panda, for this excellent presentation, and also bringing those ideas which all of us have not very much aware. So thank you very much. And Dr. Singh has really ably defended the different levels of meaning, and Brahman is a tricky point. And we Brahmanvadins, let us assume some of us are Brahmanvadins, will not say that it's a suggestive meaning or evaluative meaning. But it cannot be ruled out that there is a way of understanding Brahman which could be an evaluative term, evaluational term. It is not always a factual or descriptive term. So both views can coexist. And in fact, Brahmavadins have to really reconcile with the fact that a word is not somebody's prerogative. Somebody is in possession. The meaning is not anybody's prerogative. So in that sense, I think Dr. Singh's reminder of the fact that Nyaya has a particular point of view will be of great relevance. So at the end, I must thank all the three speakers for their excellent presentation. I must also thank Dr. Behera, who has anchored this session, and he has excellently time managed, and he has excellently given everybody time, whoever wanted what. So I thank for this anyway. So thank you very much. Thank you, audience. Thank you, everybody.
Many, many thanks, sir. And thanks to all of you. Now, we are going to continue the academic session with parallel session in library as well as here. So in the library, Professor Ranjan Kumar Panda is going to present the session with four speakers. Then here, Professor Satya Sundar Sethi is going to preside with four speakers. Now, Dr. Niti Singh is going to convene this session. Now, mic is over to Niti Singh.
Okay, welcome to all once again. And the next technical session is going to take place now. And on the dais, I would like to invite Professor Satyasundar Shetty for preside over the session. Please, sir, come and have your seat on the dais. Also, I would like to invite all the four speakers in this technical session. Dr. Jayant Upadhyay. No, he is not there. Okay. Okay, Dr. Sriram A.S., please have your seat. Dr. Rahul Kumar Maurya, please come on the dais and take your seat. आपने यही लिखा था
लिखा था अभी जॉनसन
Okay.
जॉनसन आ रहे हैं ना
Oh.
पांडे सर इधर है ना
Okay. Okay. And Professor S.P. Pandey sir, please come on the dais. And Dr. Rajan, please come on the dais and take your seat. Dr. S.P. Pandey, कौन है? अच्छा, Dr. S.P. Pandey, sorry, not Professor S.P. Pandey. Excuse me, please. Sorry, Dr. S.P. Pandey, one of the speakers in this technical session. I'm so sorry, sir. Okay, so all the four speakers have already taken their seat on the dais, and our president is here. And we are actually running out of time, so a very gentle request to all the speakers that you'll be given only 20 minutes for your presentation and 5 minutes for the discussion. So please be a little bit, aware of the time, because it is very awkward to interrupt the speaker when we are, they are speaking. So without any delay, I think I should. I don't have the introduction note or any description about the speakers. Anyway, I'm just saying that all the three speakers are assistant professors. Dr. Rajan is in the Aziz Premji University, if I'm right. And Dr. Rahul Kumar Maurya is one of my colleagues, and he's here an assistant professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, and a very active member of this department. And he has published some very good papers in the journals. Also, Dr. Rajan has done a very good academic job. And Dr. S.P. Pandey, I'm not very, aware of your designation, or you are also assistant professor. Where? Okay, Wardha. He is in Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Wardha, and Okay, with this brief introduction of the speakers, we are just inviting them one by one to speak. And in this sequence, firstly, I would like to invite Dr. Rahul Kumar Maurya for their. Uh, okay, I didn't have that. Oh, okay, so much job and a very little time, but still. I would request some of my colleagues, like Dr. Pramod Kumar Bagre and some other colleagues, if they are here, to felicitate our speakers and our president of the session with shawl and garland. Is a speaker? I'm not knowing. Okay. Yes. A very humble gesture showed by Dr. Rajan. He is one of our PhD scholars. He was, and now he is an assistant professor. And we have one more speaker. Sorry, I forgot to mention Dr. Sriram A.S., who is an assistant professor in the Department of Dharma Shastra and Mimamsa, SVDVBHU. So I welcome all these four speakers and our president of the session to this technical session. Without any further delay, I'm inviting Dr. Rahul Kumar Maurya to start his presentation. Sir, please come.
Well, thank you, Dr. Neeti, for your kind words. And thank you, Dr. Rajiv, for giving me this opportunity to share my ideas. At the very outset, let me make some disclaimers that I'm not a Quinean scholar, and I'm really a bit hesitant to speak anything in front of really learned scholars of Quine, Professor Pradhan, Professor Nirmala Chakravarti, Professor D.N. Tiwari, Professor, I don't think Professor Gopal Sahu is here, but, and Professor Ranjan Panda. But I do have certain reading of Quine. So I'll try to wind up my presentation in 20 minutes, and you can stop me when I'm exceeding my time. So this paper is titled as Meaning, Holism, and Semantic Externalism. Quine has revolted against the philosophy and philosophical practice as a priori discipline. The traditional a priori philosophical inquiry has been to provide the foundations of knowledge in general and the foundational conditions of scientific inquiry in particular. Quine radically breaks away from the a priori conception of philosophy, which has been present in Plato, Descartes, and Kant. He has attempted to bring philosophy within the standard scientific inquiry, that is, being empirical. Though his conception of naturalized epistemology has not accepted positivistic conception of philosophy, which believes that a sentence is meaningful only if it is empirically verifiable. For Quine, any single sentence cannot be confirmed or disconfirmed, rather it has to be placed within the body of all sentences under that theory, or the sentence in ordinary language has to be confirmed or disconfirmed within the whole language of that community. The idea of semantic externalism is that meaning is just ant in the head, right? Or you can say the mental state or image or some sort of connotation, rather meaning lies outside of the mind.
Now, in this paper, I shall try to understand some of the issues related to meaning holism and semantic externalism, like whether Quine's meaning holism and Putnam's meaning holism are one and the same thing, or they differ from each other in their content, whether meaning holism can be rightly upheld against philosophical criticism, and whether Putnam's semantic externalism is consistent with meaning holism. Now, let me begin with the idea which Quine had in his mind when he was talking about this meaning holism. Now, for him, this meaning holism has not been, as Professor Nirmala Chakravarti has brought out, that it wasn't for him a meaning holism, right? Rather, it was a kind of confirmation holism with regard to scientific theory. But he does talk about meaning in the beginning of his two dogmas of empiricism, where he says, and especially he brings certain analogy from Aristotelian conception of essences of things. And he says, and I think that is where the problem lies with Quine. Quine thought, as Aristotle believed, that things have essences, right? And when these essences are eliminated from the object itself and attached to the word, right, they become meaning in terms of linguistic form, or meaning of a linguistic forms, or you can, you can say synonymy, or you can say the meanings which are analytic. And that is where his idea of analyticity and synonymy comes in, just because he believes in an Aristotelian sense that the objects can have essences. And this is really problematic, and I think the entire scientific venture has to find out whether objects can be really determined, right, in terms of their essential nature, whether we can really find out the essences of the things or not. Since the essences of the things are not to be found out at any moment of time, and hence this meaning in terms of synonymy or meaning in terms of analyticity will also not come up. So now let me understand in a Putnamian sense, there are two things with regard to meaning that we need to take into account. One is intention and another is extension. Now, if we understand in an Aristotelian sense that this intention part can really cover the entire essence of the object, then we can also believe that this set of essences, right, or a set of linguistic meanings can really help us individuate the object itself. But the Putnam and many other philosophers are saying that we can have certain meaning of the word or sentence, right? Meaning in terms of connotation or in terms of intention. But then this intention can never help you locate or individuate the objective reality as such. And yet, this minimal possession of intention is really required to begin your conversation in a linguistic community, right? Suppose as a layman, right, we do not know what is the scientific and objective structure of water, and yet we all possess the minimal meaning of the word water, and that could be that water is tasteless, odorless, right, colorless, and it can quench our thirst. Now, all these, you can say, ideas put together, they can constitute the intention part of the word. And yet, this intentional part, which could be a kind of mentalistic thing or psychological entity, now this psychological entity can help you begin to understand the object or to have a conversation in your everyday life. And in most of the times, this minimalist intention attached and associated with any word is sufficient to have your conversation, right, and make your human transactions. But when there is a standard situation to find out what is the objective nature of the object which the intention is referring to, that is where you have to rely on a scientific community, right? So this is very important because Quine has taken that meaning is nothing but analyticity, right? And he has taken certain kinds of examples where he says that all bachelors are unmarried men, or no unmarried man uh, is bachelor, something like. I mean, all these statements which he has taken seem to be analytic, but then analytic, if you really go further and try to define what is analyticity, then you have to rely back on the synonymy. And then he's saying that when you are to define what is synonymy, and then the synonymy has already considered within it the notion of analyticity. So both are interdependent in a way. They are not explaining one, right, in the other. Rather, both are demanding each other, right? And both are, I mean, it is a kind of vicious cycle. But not all kinds of words are analytic, right? There might be a pre-analytic words and pre-analytic statements, which Putnam and many other philosophers are talking about. And that is where we can have certain meaning attached to the word, and that meaning cannot be meaning as an intention. That intention cannot be fully synonymous with that word. It cannot be fully analytic with that word. And that's why this intention is never thought to be understood as this intention can really help you find out the objective reality, right? And that is where he is actually distinguishing between two components of the meaning. One is psycholinguistic part and another is sociolinguistic part. Now the psycholinguistic part is something which he calls intention. And intention can be formed by certain stereotypical ideas. As I just discussed about word water, that water is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and it can quench our thirst. But then you can also find certain other substance, right, which resembles with the intention, right, attached to the word, and yet that substance may not be water, right? And this is where he brings in this twin earth argument. This twin earth argument says that suppose there is another similar earth, which he calls twin earth, and the speaker on the earth is having certain intention about the word water, right? And then there is a twin earth, and the speaker of the twin earth also have the same intention. But the water is known on the earth as H2O, but suppose the word water is known as XYZ on the twin earth. Now the intention part attached to the word water is common, and yet the referent is completely different. And that's why he's saying that this intention cannot be the full meaning, right? It is a minimal psychological entity that we all possess in order to have our normal communication and conversations in the linguistic community. And most of the times we do not require really to know the full meaning, right? And the full meaning can be that, and that is where the other part of meaning comes, and that is psycholinguistic part. This psycholinguistic part will always be constituted by a certain dedicated community for it, maybe the scientific community, which is investigating and finding out the structure, right, of the word water. Suppose if the scientific community has found out the word water is H2O, right? As if this H2O is the objective structure of water, and the other intentional part is stereotypes. That means the stereotypes may also change sometimes. But then Putnam is also cautioning us that for any moment of time, whatever scientific community has found out, suppose H2O, maybe in the future you have to also consider this H2O as a part of intention, and the scientific community may find out something else as the structure of the word water. So, though this extensional part of any word will be always determined by the group of scientists, and it is never done by the layman, and yet that psychological part or the psychological entity which Quine has been completely denying. Quine believes that this meaning holism is only with regard to determining the physical facts, right? And the scientific theory is only determining the physical facts. And that is where he talks about observational statements. And for him, observational statements are supplying a kind of evidential foundationalism, which Professor Madhuchanda Sen was talking about on day 4 yesterday. I believe that this Quine's evidential foundationalism is also problematic. And the set of observation statements which he is talking about, and believing that these observational statements are something which can immediately lead the speaker to assent or dissent, right, on the occurrence of a certain stimulation, right? And stimulation is what? It is a kind of neural firing to your nerve ending, right? And if there is a certain kinds of stimulation to your nerve ending, then you will immediately assent to it or dissent to it. Now, interestingly, the example that he has given, or let me just, the example that I thought about, it is like this, that each time these certain kinds of neural firing will not give rise, right, to a kind of fixed assent, right? Suppose you have seen, and he has also given that example of rabbit, right? Suppose if you have seen the rabbit from one angle, right, from one side, right, there is a kind of stimulation or pattern of neural firing to your nerve ending, right? And you can assent to it as it is a rabbit. But when you see it from a different angle, right, the pattern of neural firing or stimulation is different, but assent to a particular sentence that it is rabbit is same. So that means that one set of, there are different kinds of patterns of neural firings, but the assent to a particular sentence is same, right? And that is where he talks about this receptive similarity and perceptual similarity. But I think in perceptual similarity, the normative content is already there, right? And in the example of a Gawa guy, where he says that suppose if you have been in a jungle and where you spotted a native speaker of that area who utters the word Gawa guy, and now you have Quine has used two sentences. One, the undetached part of the rabbit, and the word rabbit. Now, the neural firing or the stimulation that you are having is one, but whether it is meant rabbit or it is undetached rabbit is not completely determined, whereas the neural firing is there, right? That means a certain pattern of neural firing is not determining the fixed set of assent to a sentences. And moreover, when Quine is using the rabbit and undetached rabbit, two sentences, that means before he really assents to the certain kinds of stimulation, right, these two sentences must have a prior and distinguishable meaning, right? That means meaning must be attached to sentence and words before you really determine a certain physical fact, right? Otherwise, you may mean that undetached rabbit part and rabbit both are having one and the same meaning. But here, when you're saying whether it should be rabbit, the assent to rabbit, or assent to the undetached rabbit part, that means the meaning of these sentences or the words are predetermined. And that is where Putnam is saying that we must have minimal understanding of extension. He is allowing that for each sentence, there must be certain psychological entities associated with those words, and yet this intentional part is not the full meaning of that word. The extensional part, which is the another fullest meaning of that word, will be determined by uh, the entire community labor, right? Which he calls scientific community, right? So he talks about this uh, labor division, right? That to determine the extension is not the job of the layman. That can be done by the scientific community, and that is where Putnam agrees with Quine, a kind of meaning holism, right? Though Quine is saying that only physical facts are there and that they can be determined by a kind of uh, confirmation holism, right? Putnam also says that without change in the physical fact, the meaning will not be changed. But then he accepts before determining the physical fact, there is a psychological reality, there are psychological entities in terms of intentions that cannot be eliminated. So I would stop here with this, that Putnam accepts that we need to have and we cannot manage without having these psychological entities in terms of intentions, and yet this intention is not the meaning, and that's why until unless you suppose the change in the physical reality, there will not be any change in the fullest meaning of the word, right? These stereotypes attached to the intentions may keep changing, right? But the full meaning of the word cannot be changed, and that's why he is retaining the objective reality, the environmental factor as such through causal change. So this is where I would stop. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful presentation. Now, if any one of you have any question, you can directly talk to our speaker. Is there any question? No question? How's that? Okay, so there is no question from offline or online participants. So we are moving towards the next speaker's presentation, and now I would like to invite Dr. Rajan for his presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone, to the organization or organizer, Professor Bhera, and I am very thankful to my department that I am able to present here. Professor Latif Kazmi, Professor Chakrabarti, Professor Pradhan, and Professor Pandey, and my dais fellow speakers. Most of the dice has already been thrown. Professor Chanda, Professor Sen, and Professor Chakrabarti, Professor Pradhan. So what I shall try, that I would try to rearrange those dices, and within this time I would check whether I would be able to, rearrange those dices or not. And the topic which I have chosen is basically on the philosophy that has been proposed by our department professor, Professor D.N. Tiwari. He has written a wonderful book, Dynamics of Language, Philosophy of the World of the Worlds. Now, when I'm going to defend his thesis, there are some reservations, there are some theses that with which I agree, and there are some theses with which I do not agree. So I would also try to defend those views of mine. So before I move forward, let me just brief you about what is my agenda. First one, that I would try to show why naturalism or semantic naturalism is a problematic thing, as yesterday defended by Professor Pradhan in his presentation. Most of the thesis, whether by Professor Sen or recently just Professor Raul, has defended this thesis that language is just an expression of natural phenomenon, or it has to be associated with that. Second, if we believe in this particular thesis of semantic naturalism, or that is coming out of epistemic naturalism or epistemological naturalism, I would show why it is a threatful thing for number of regions. The third one, in the very inaugural, Professor P.K. Mukhopadhyay sir also gives us a very open-ended question, and that question is, does Indian philosophy have its own philosophy of language separate from epistemology or metaphysics? Which is very intriguing for me, and I would try to explore it through my deliberation. And the fourth objective that I would try to deliberate upon is the mystery of meaning, whether it is transcendental or eternal, or it is a priori, or it is just an a priori, or coming out of experience only, as Quine basically proposed. And at last, very much resonating with the very fact of semantic naturalism, I would also talk about how Professor Tiwari's theory of cognitive holism gives us a unique interpretation to look at the nature of morality and rationality, and it would be very much enlightening for us. Now, let me begin with a very important quotation proposed by Quine, who says that philosophy of science is philosophy enough. It is within science itself and not in some prior philosophy that reality is to be identified and described. This is this has been propounded in the theories and things, and within this particular text, he has also contemplated upon the idea of mathematics, logic, moral language, and so on. And this particular framework that Quine proposes is very much central to his whole philosophy. Now, let me just, to problematize the matter, I would just take up the dictums which Professor Pradhan actually helps us to summarize. First, very easily, as Professor Rahul just described, that language has been totally naturalized in Quinean way. So this is something which has become a kind of reduction. Sorry for the interruption. It's all right. Hmm. ठीक है. ठीक. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. So when Quine is saying, or when the very thesis of Quinean point of view is proposing the idea of naturalism, it has to be analyzed from multiple point of view. And I think that it is coming from the very Humean sense when he is saying that rationality is the slave of passion, and it should be. Why so? Because when Hume is talking about the idea of analytic and synthetic distinction, or the relation of ideas and matter of facts, his emphasis is basically is on the idea of matter of facts, and that same human ideology has been accepted by the modern logical positivist and even the Quine, who claimed that he has refuted the he has defended the idea of two dogmas of empiricism, is actually fall into another trap which is very much embedded in his thesis, like that again comes in the idea of naturalism. Second, very easily, that he is explaining the very idea of that how we are getting to the towards the meaning, how we are getting the meaning. That is coming out of stimulus and behavior. The term very much gawa gawai or whatever you are calling has become a very much fashionable term in this particular seminar. So that thing is very much explaining how the meaning is coming out of language, whether it is word or sentence. Although he is talking about holism, that sentence and meaning are not separate, but still that particular language is embedded in Quinean notion of behavior or nature. That is not something that is coming from non-natural point of view, that I shall contemplate shortly. This thing follows that meaning is just a byproduct of this particular approach, and in this regard he is basically replicating the Ryle's position, and he reduces meaning to the behavior or natural phenomenon. And this particular thing actually take us to the realm that meaning is just a museum piece. It is not something that can be meaningful for all of us, and I would come to the notion that how it is dangerous for us. Now, Pinker, the another thinker in this regard, is also of this particular category, although we consider that he is a conditional rationalist. But when we look at his idea, whether in the linguistic is instinct, or whether his idea of enlightenment now, or his recent published book Rationality, his idea of rationality, his idea of language is very much embedded in his approach to naturalism. He is basically emphasize the role of reason and evidence-based thinking in solving problem, improving society, but that particular thing is embedded in his human kind of agenda. That is the thing. Oh, okay, ठीक. So take for one instance, I would come to the notion that how this particular thing is very much problematic. And when I would be briefing about Professor Tiwari's disposition, he has countered two particular views that how language is not just an expression of thought. It is more than that. Okay, this is the first dogma which basically all the naturalists and all the representationalists behold in one way or another. And following the same, I think that I am able to show you the problem with which I want to deal. That how naturalism, how behaviorism, or how the representationalist position with regard to language and meaning is very much a very big issue for all of the philosopher or all of the thinkers who has some sort of thinking about that language and meaning can have any a priori essence or any a priori realm. Now, coming to the Tiwari's position, which he expresses through his theory called cognitive holist, we need to understand that in order to understand his cognitive holist position, there are two approaches which are very much essential to understand. First, he explained in a very unique manner. Typically, we think that there are four levels of speech. One is para, pasyanti, madhyama, and vakri. But Tiwari uniquely and with rightly following the Bhartrihari's conception, reduce it into the three level. One is pasyanti, madhyama, and vakri. He observed that the position of madhyama is the central of philosophical discourse. With this particular thesis, I would little differ, and I would argue that the realm of philosophy need to be explored. The circle of philosophy need to be broadened a little bit, because the thing she has been asking from the day one, the idea of silence or the language of the poets or the language of the spiritualist shall not preside in this particular notion of Madhyama with which Professor Tiwari is centrally, what to say, obsessed or very much engrossed in particular thesis. So this thing at this point I would little differ, but however this particular thesis is very much unique. Theory discusses in this particular point of view that how para beyond Pashyanti cannot be distinguished. Rather, he summarizes the four level of speeches into three. One is Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vakriya. I shall come to the description about these three notions. And the another one that there are three factors involved in language according to the grammarians, whose tradition Professor Tiwari follows. First, the Sphota. Oh, sorry. The first is simply the Dhavni. Dhavni is the simply manifestation with which I think most of the behaviorists as well as naturalists shall also agree, whether it is uh, Pinker or Quine or whatever, that the utterance level is accepted by most of us. Second, the Sphota concept, the idea, thought, the intelligible being of language, the expressor which expresses itself. Here, one intriguing concept that Professor Tiwari introduces is his idea of flesh of consciousness. The Sphota is not something natural that is embodied in the natural world, like it came from pain or pleasure or from some natural kind of foundation. Third is the pratibha, the meaning. That meaning is very much central to my presentation, that where does that meaning basically consist. Professor Tiwari, following the cognitive holist position, following again the idea of tradition, argues that meaning cannot be separated from the language because you cannot think of any meaning without language. But I think it is really hard to separate the both because it is the very central thesis of an holist, but it differs from Quinean point of view. Quine suggests that you can extract the meaning with the very behavior, the gawa gai, whatever you are saying to that thing, you can extract the meaning from that particular behavior of a person or particular event or an object. But Professor Tiwari's notion of cognitive holism differs and critiques beautifully this thing. And then we move forward, and then language involves three factors overall, as discussed: Dhavani, Sphota, and Pratibha. Dhavani is articulated sound which manifests the Sphota. The Sphota is the meaning revealing unit, the expressor or the signifier, and the Pratibha is the meaning, the signified, the express, the flash of understanding. And I shall come in the conclusion how meaning cannot be naturalized. It has to have an independent existence. Whether you believed, even if you believe that meaning has to be in language, then you have to have some a priori existence of this thing. Thank you. Now I am coming to the notion that how this thing can be defended on the idea which Professor Pradhan yesterday proposes and helped us to understand that experience is only minimum, only at the root, or it does not end with the nature only. Second, normativity shall take the language to the next level of reality. The second half of Professor Tiwari's second volume talks about this thing, that language is basically a normative, or to say activity. It basically gives us a sense of activity. It tells us how to perform the duty. It is basically in that particular realm. It is not something basically rooted in the naturalism that has no prior or a prior meaning. Quine actually missed the role of the mind, as rightly pointed out by Professor Pradhan yesterday, and Professor Tiwari has done justice with this thing by bringing the idea of cognitive into the discourse of philosophy of language. While I am proposing this thesis, I am of the view that when Professor P.K. Mukhopadhyay is questioning the whether Indian philosophy has any philosophy of language separate from its epistemology or metaphysics, can be answered with Professor Tiwari's position, because he himself is doing justice with philosophy of language, in a sense that he is not rooting language into the idea of pursuit of metaphysics. Rather, he is saying, I shall come to that point, that metaphysics in the grammarian tradition is secondary or later, rather it is a very philosophical pursuit in the beginning. Meaning, according to both, of course, as I pointed out, according to Quine as well as Professor Tiwari, is holistic, but their idea of holism differ. Yesterday, Professor Chakrabarti was trying to do justice by doing a hypothetical study, but I was much more interested, like whether we can do some critical account, that how can we examine the incompatibility of both these thinkers. And I find that when we are comparing Bhartrihari's idea of holism and Quinean idea of holism, there are number of incompatibility which need to be addressed. And the fundamental debate consists in the idea of naturalism and non-naturalism. And of course, the idea that grammar take care of holistic aspect of language, that no meaning is possible without language. And I shall come to this particular thing. And then with this thing, that after claiming that Professor Tiwari has done a wonderful job by proposing that Indian philosophy has its own philosophy of language, where metaphysics is secondary or later, rather philosophy of language is primary, and it can actually helps us to liberate. And in this regard, I would mention from the review. Professor Anand Mishra has done a wonderful review of his book published from the Journal of the East and the West, and he has said that the sense that it does talk about spiritual goal of philosophy of language. Philosophy of language is royal road to liberation. It is freedom from the captivity of some or other thing, theories, and their elegance. The problem lies in the fact that we stick to this or that ideology, whether it is naturalism or any other. Language expresses cognition without dependency on things, on our allegiance to them. Cognition as thus is pure flesh or disinterested. Interested knowledge emerges only when this pure and disinterested cognition is imposed on our passion, emotion, physiological, cultural, and religious things, and our allegiance to them. We should concentrate on disinterested cognition and practice avoiding knowing by imposing. Philosophy differentiate what is distinctively cognized by language and its imposition on emotion, passion, and other allegiance. A true philosopher is one who knows discriminately what is revealed and what is imposed. And this is a unique philosophy of language that Professor Tiwari has propounded through his book, and which is wonderful. And now I am coming to the last part, why following the naturalistic position with regard to language or language meaning relationship can be a threat. It is basically a threat when we practice the revisionary metaphysics, whether you talk of Plato or whether you talk of, Schopenhauer, or whether you talk of Immanuel Kant, or whether you talk of, the contemporary neo-Vedantist. When they are doing revisionary metaphysics, means that the thing which you see might not be the thing, it may differ from the perspective in which you are observing. Professor Chomsky once narrated a beautiful story that science is nothing but a drunk man who is roaming around a pillar where the light consists. So where the light is not available, what about that meaning? The silence which he is talking about has a meaning, but it is our ignorance, or it is our limit, that we are not able to comprehend that. It shall be comprehended, it may be comprehended, And as Professor Niti was talking about, that there may be a number of level of absolute. It may have emotive meaning, it may have descriptive meaning, it may have the prescriptive meaning, it may have, and K.C. Bhattacharya very well has propounded this idea in his very thesis, that absolute and its alternative forms. So we may look into that thing, and we need to go beyond to the very dogma of naturalism. Second, moral discourse again start losing its very foundation if we believe into that particular naturalist stance with which Professor Quine is a main and in fact the main whether to say propounder or the follower. And in this sense, today is Valentine Day, and today is also the Saraswati Puja. So I would say happy Valentine Day and happy Saraswati Puja. These very notion would lose these senses if we naturalized the whole of the thesis. And I would left my presentation with a particular question, whether meaning is prior or eternal to language is a matter of concern, and this can be very much problematized with the Euthyphro dilemma of Plato. He is talking about in the moral realm, I am replicating into the realm of language. If the whole of the humanity switch off its consciousness for a moment or for 100 years and then re-emerges on the earth, whether the meaning will change or not. This is the thing that I wanted to convey. This question is open-ended. Professor Tiwari hasn't agreed with this thing that meaning and language cannot be separated, but it is consistent with his thesis that language and meaning cannot be separated. But some scholar has argued that meaning has its independent existence, its eternal existence. Manish sir had just cited me the first sloka from Vakyapadiya. आप एक बार बोल देंगे क्या? Yeah. This is the thing. With this particular shloka, I am proposing the idea that the meaning may have its prior existence or a priori existence that need to be defended. Thank you.
A very good presentation, Dr. Rajan. Congratulations for this. And if there is any question from the audience, yes, please, Dr. Mitra. Hand over the mic to her, please. Ma'am, ask your question. शिव माइक ऑन कर दीजिए.
Behaviorist? Is he an analytic behaviorist? And because if he is one, then he would be in problem, because it starts with a very specific professor agenda to discuss the analytic synthetic dichotomy. And given the fact that he's talking about beliefs, he's talking about conceptual schemes, he uses the term belief. In that case, how is he also maintaining his profession as a behaviorist?
Would you like to respond? We both can respond because we are dealing with the same issue. So yeah, the idea, the two key terms that I am taking from your question, the conceptual scheme is very much coming from his naturalistic point of view. He is not coining the thing, like take for an instance the idea of love or the idea of law, the practices that we do in the mathematics, or any other thing like the idea of truth, the idea of human rights. Such kind of things, where would we place them? Quinian stance is that they are very much rooted in our behavior that actually tells us who we are. We are not something transcendental or superior being. We are just a part of this world. And the concern of philosopher should be confined to this particular viewpoint, that how can we justify what we are, who we are, what we are being, with the very examination of our examination in the very empiricistic sense, that how can we examine our behavior, all of the world view of human being in the typical empiricistic sense. This is the view. I forgot the prior question that you wanted to trace. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This is a challenge. He is self-contradicting himself. And I am of the view that although, yeah, so he is not analytic behaviorist, rather he is a synthetic behaviorist, in the sense that he is trying to associate whole of the human endeavor to the realm of science only. The quotation which I just cited there, that philosophy has only one aim, which is to serve science, and science is means natural science, empirical methodology. So in that sense, I do not think he would be agreeing that we count him as an analytic behaviorist. He shall count himself as a synthetic empiricist. I think I'm of the view, Professor Pradhan, and
I think I also believe that his uh, idea of observation statements, where he wants to, where his supposedly analytic behaviorism uh, surface, but I think it doesn't come out. He says that for observation statements, there must be immediate assent to a statement when certain kinds of uh, stimulus comes to the nerve ending. But I have seen, and I just try to think about that there can be different kinds of, I mean, or there can be one sort of stimulation or one pattern of stimulation firing, and yet you can have a different kind of assent. So that means there is no fixed and strict connection between a kind of pattern of one pattern of neural firing and certain kinds of behavioral assent. So that is where I think this normative content in terms of interpretation of a neural firing is embedded into it, is implicit into it, and I think he need to abandon this observation statements as evidential foundationalism, and he need to become thoroughgoing pragmatist. So towards that, and I mean, I'm just stretching Quine to that next level where it is always, I mean, interpretation, even so-called the stimulation patterns, because when he is saying that there is a one pattern of stimulation that you receive, but then you are confused whether it is I mean, undetached rabbit part or it is whole rabbit. So there is no immediate assent, right? Behavioral assent to the availability of a certain kinds of stimulation or stimulus firing.
Sorry, we cannot entertain more questions because we are running short of time and we have two more speakers. So I apologize. And
Take one question, she was raising that.
so two more speakers are there, so she can raise her questions with any of the speakers. Please better wait, because we have to wind up the session at 2, and we have two speakers and very lengthy presentations are there. So without any delay, I would invite Dr. Shriram AS, and he'll be speaking on Mimamsa Shastranusareda Shabdarth Vimarsha. So please, sir, come and present your paper.
ॐ तच्छंयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजं शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सर्वादौ अयम् अवकाशः प्रदत्तः इत्यतः बेहरा महाभागेभ्यः संयोजकेभ्यः धन्यवादाः समर्प्यन्ते। मदीय पत्रस्य विषयः भवति शब्द मीमांसा शास्त्रानुसारेण शब्दार्थ विमर्शः। मीमांसा शास्त्र प्रकार से शब्द क्या है, अर्थ क्या है, और शब्द और अर्थ के बारे में जो विचार है उसका प्रस्तुतिकरण करता हूं। एक्चुअली मेरा पेपर संस्कृत में है, लेकिन बहुत लोग समझ नहीं पाएंगे, इसलिए पीपीटी है और इसको देखते हुए आप थोड़ा सा समझ सकते हैं। इस पेपर में इतना है विषय, मीमांसा है, मीमांसा का काम क्या है, और शब्द और अर्थ और दोनों के संबंध में क्या विचार है, और अर्थ बताने के लिए समस्या क्या है, और पारिभाषिक पद किस तरह का पद मिलता है, और पद भेद किस तरह का मिलता है, वृत्ति क्या है, शब्द बोध कैसे, और शब्द बोध में वाद, अन्वित अभिधानवाद और अभिहितान्वयवाद, ये दोनों वाद आप सुने होंगे। इतना विचार रहता है। एक्चुअली इसमें 40 स्लाइड है, मैं थोड़ा सा हिंट देके जाता हूं। धर्माधर्मयोः विचारार्थम प्रवृत्तम शास्त्रम मीमांसा दर्शनम। धर्म और अधर्म के बारे में विचार करने के लिए ही मीमांसा शास्त्र प्रवृत्त है। धर्म क्या है, विचार क्या है, धर्म को बताने वाला प्रमाण क्या है, वेद है। तो वेद वाक्यों का अर्थ विचार करना चाहिए। वेद वाक्यों का अर्थ विचार कब होगा, जब पद का विचार हो जाता है। जब येन प्रकारेण शब्दानां विचारः क्रियते तेनैव वाक्यानां विचारः संभवति। इसलिए मीमांसा शास्त्र को वाक्य शास्त्र कहते हैं। पद प्रमाण पारावार पारीणाः ऐसे अवार्ड देते थे पहले। पद वाक्य प्रमाण, वाक्य शास्त्र माने मीमांसा शास्त्र है। मीमांसा शास्त्र में शब्द के बारे में विचार मिलता है। वर्णाः एव शब्दाः, वर्ण को ही शब्द कहते हैं। सह वर्णाः नित्याः विभुः द्रव्यम च। वर्ण जो है नित्य है और अर्थ भी नित्य है। अर्थ क्यों नित्य है, पदार्थ क्यों नित्य है? जाति में शक्ति मानते हैं मीमांसा लोग। माने गाय पद का अर्थ क्या है, गौः इति पदस्य अर्थः गोत्वम। गोत्वम जाति में शक्ति मानते हैं, इसलिए वो अर्थ नित्य है। शब्दार्थयोः संबंधोऽपि नित्यः। शब्द और अर्थ में जो संबंध रहता है वो संबंध भी नित्य है। इसलिए इसके लिए इसके बारे में एक जैमिनी सूत्र है, औत्पत्तिकस्तु शब्दस्य अर्थेन संबंधः तस्य ज्ञानम उपदेशो अव्यतिरेकश्चार्थे अनुपलब्धे तत्प्रमाणम बादरायणस्य अनपेक्षत्वात्। ऐसा सूत्र है। औत्पत्तिकस्तु शब्दस्य अर्थेन संबंधः, शब्द और अर्थ दोनों के बीच में जो संबंध है, सह औत्पत्तिकः। औत्पत्तिक माने नित्य। और शब्द के बारे में थोड़ा सा विचार करेंगे। अग्निहोत्रम जुहोति, ऐसा वाक्य मिलता है। अग्निहोत्र शब्द का अर्थ क्या है? वहां अग्निहोत्रम द्वितीय विभक्ति है। द्वितीय विभक्ति का अर्थ है कर्मत्वम, लेकिन वो कर्मत्व अर्थ को छोड़ देते। प्राप्ता प्राप्त विवेक न्याय बोल के एक न्याय है, उस न्याय से अग्निहोत्र की प्राप्ति नहीं हुई, इसलिए अग्निहोत्रेण होमेन इष्टम भावेत, ऐसा अर्थ करेंगे। माने अग्निहोत्र हवन से, ऐसे तृतीय विभक्ति का जो अर्थ है वो द्वितीय विभक्ति का प्रयोग है तो भी उसका अर्थ लेंगे। नेक्स्ट है एतया निषाद स्थपतिम याजयेत, इस तरह का वेद वाक्य मिलता है। निषाद स्थपति शब्द का अर्थ क्या है, विचार करते हैं। निषाद शब्द का दो प्रकार का अर्थ मिल सकता है। निषादानाम स्थपति, षष्ठी तत्पुरुष समास है। निषाद माने हंटर है, हंटर के लिए जो लीडर है, स्थपति माने लीडर। हंटर के लिए जो लीडर है वो निषाद स्थपति, ऐसे भी बोल सकते हैं। नहीं तो निषादश्च असौ स्थपति ही, निषाद ही हंटर ही लीडर है। ऐसे दो प्रकार का अर्थ है। माने त्रैवर्णिक के लिए अधिकार मिल सकता है अथवा अत्रैवर्णिक के भी, अत्रैवर्णिक लोगों के लिए अधिकार मिल सकता है। तो किस अर्थ में प्रयोग करें? निषादानाम स्थपति ही, षष्ठी तत्पुरुष समास करने से लक्षणा लेनी पड़ती है, इसलिए निषादश्च असौ स्थपति ही, ऐसे कर्मधारय समास करेंगे। नेक्स्ट, वर्षासु रथकारो अग्निन आदधीता, इस तरह का शब्द वाक्य प्रयोग है। वहां रथकार शब्द का प्रयोग मिलता है। रथकार माने क्या है? रथम करोति इति रथकारः, जो रथ बनाएगा वो रथकार हो सकता है। अथवा एक जाति विशेष में रूढ़ पद है, सौधन्वा ऐसे बोलते हैं। रथम करोति इति योग व्युत्पत्ति लेने से गौरव हो जाता है, इसलिए रूढ़ी से सौधन्वा बोल के जाति विशेष को मानते। और एक न्याय है, पदम अज्ञात संदिग्धम प्रसिद्धैः अपृथक श्रुति निर्णीयते। जब बहुत पदों का प्रयोग रहता है एक पद का अर्थ समझ में नहीं आने से भी उस बाकी पदों का समव्यवहार से अर्थ को समझ सकते हैं। कैसे? प्रभिन्न कमलोदर मधुनी मधुकर पिबती, कमल का उदर में जो मधु है, हनी है, उसको मधुकर पी रहा है। जब मधुकर शब्द का अर्थ समझ में नहीं आता है, उस समय में बाकी शब्द का प्रयोग से मधुकर शब्द का भी अर्थ समझ सकते हैं। एक वैदिक उदाहरण है, राजसूयेन यजेता, राजा राजसूयेन स्वराज्य कामो यजेता, इस तरह का प्रयोग मिलता है। राजसूय पद का अर्थ क्या है? वो अप्रसिद्ध पद है, उसका यजेता पद के साथ प्रयोग है, राजसूयेन यजेता। इसलिए याग का नाम है राजसूय। याग माने सोमयाग भी आ सकता है, इष्टि भी आ सकती है, और पशु याग भी आ सकता है। ये सब यागों का नाम है राजसूय। और एक है दर्शपूर्णमासाभ्याम यजेता, दर्शपूर्णमास याग करो, इस तरह का विधि वाक्य है। दर्शपूर्णमासाभ्याम यहाँ द्वितीय विभक्ति है। द्वितीय विभक्ति से दो यागों को लेना है क्या? ऐसा नहीं है। एक्चुअली दर्श में 3 याग है और पूर्णिमा में 3 याग है, टोटल मिलकर के 6 याग है। 6 यागों का नाम दर्शपूर्णमास याग है। बाद में यवमयश्चरुर भवति, इस तरह का प्रयोग मिलता है। यव शब्द का प्रयोग है। यव शब्द का प्रयोग 2 अर्थ में होता है, एक दीर्घ शुक है, एक प्रियंगु है। कौन सा अर्थ लेना है? वहां एक वाक्य शेष मिलता है पास में, यत्रान्या औषधयो म्लायन्ते अथैते मोदमाना इवोत्तिष्ठन्ति। बाकी सब सस्य जब मर जाते फिर भी ये यव सस्य जिंदा रहता है, इस अर्थ में है। इससे समझ में आता है यव शब्द का अर्थ बार्ली, ऐसा अर्थ। वाराही उपानहो उपमुंचता, इस तरह का वेद वाक्य का प्रयोग है। वराह शब्द का 2 अर्थ में प्रयोग है, एक सूकर में प्रयोग है, एक कृष्ण शकुन में प्रयोग है। और जो कौन सा अर्थ लेना है? वाराहम गावो अनुधावंती, इस तरह का वाक्य है। वाराह माने सूकर के पीछे, पिग पीछे क्या है? वो गाय दौड़ता है, इस तरह का अर्थवाद मिलता है। इसलिए वराह शब्द का अर्थ पिग, ऐसा अर्थ निर्णय करते हैं। और संदोषेन अभिचरण्य जेता, यहाँ संदोष माने चिमटा है, ये लोक में प्रसिद्धि है। लेकिन यथा संदंशेन दुरादानम आदत्ते, इस तरह का अर्थवाद का प्रयोग मिलता है, इसलिए संदंश शब्द का अर्थ याग का नाम है, ऐसा लेंगे। और गवा अभिचर्यमाणो यजेता, इस तरह का वाक्य है। गवा में गाय है, एक्चुअली गाय अर्थ उस अर्थ को छोड़ देते हैं, यथा गावो गोपायंती, जैसे गाय रक्षा करते हैं ऐसा ही याग भी रक्षा कर रहा है, इस तरह का अर्थवाद मिल रहा है, इसलिए गौ शब्द का अर्थ याग है, ऐसा लेंगे। शेन अभिचरण यजेता, शेन माने इस तरह का पक्षी विशेष है लोक में। लेकिन यथा वही शेनो निपत्य आदत्ते एवमयम दुषंतम भ्रातृव्यम निपत्य आदत्ते, इस तरह का अर्थवाद मिलता है। जैसे शेन पक्षी शत्रु को मार देता है, वैसे ही ये भी मार रहा है, इस तरह का अर्थ मिल रहा है। इसलिए यह शब्द से क्या लेंगे? शेन माने याग है, ऐसे नाम अर्थ लेंगे। मीमांसा में 3 तरह की वृत्ति को मानते हैं, एक अभिधा है, एक लक्षणा है, एक गौणी है। लक्षणा से प्रयोग कैसे? सक्तून जो होती, इस तरह का एक वाक्य है। सक्तून माने वहां द्वितीय विभक्ति है। द्वितीय विभक्ति का अर्थ कर्म है, कर्मत्व है, लेकिन उस कर्मत्व अर्थ को छोड़ देंगे। छोड़ के क्या करेंगे? सक्तु भीर जो होती, ऐसा अर्थ लक्षणा लेंगे। तृतीय अर्थ में लक्षणा लेंगे, द्वितीय प्रयोग है फिर भी तृतीय अर्थ में लक्षणा लेंगे। प्रयाज शेषेण हविंशी अभिगारयति, इस तरह का वाक्य है। प्रयाज शेषेण तृतीय विभक्ति है, हविंशी सप्तमी विभक्ति है। सप्तमी विभक्ति का अर्थ है अधिकरणत्वम और तृतीय विभक्ति का अर्थ है करणत्वम। फिर भी वो 2 अर्थ को छोड़ देंगे। लक्षणा से प्रयाज शेषम हविस्सु अभिकारेत, इस तरह का अर्थ लेंगे। और एक है सोमेन यजेता, इस तरह का वाक्य। सोमेन यजेत, सोम से याग करो ऐसे लगता है, लेकिन वो प्राप्त विवेक न्याय से सोम विशिष्ट याग कर्तव्य, सोम विशिष्ट याग करना चाहिए, इस तरह का अर्थ लेंगे। इसलिए सोम प्रकृति में लक्षणा यहां ले रहे, और पूरा वाक्य में लक्षणा। वायुव्यम श्वेतमाला भेत भूतिकामहा, इस तरह का विधि वाक्य है। वायु देवता के लिए श्वेत पशु, सफेद पशु से हवन करो, ऐश्वर्य मिलता है, इस तरह का अर्थ में विधि है। पास में एक अर्थवाद है, वायुर्वै क्षेपिष्ठा देवता वायुमेव स्वेन भागदेन उपधावति स एवैनम भूतिं गमयति, इस तरह का अर्थवाद है। माने वायु जल्दी चलने वाली देवता है, इस अर्थ में। ये इस अर्थ को लेने से वहां प्रकृत अर्थ में संबंध नहीं रहता है, इसलिए लक्षणा से पूरा वाक्य में लक्षणा लेके प्रशस्तः, इस अर्थ में लक्षणा लेंगे। माने वायु देवता के लिए जो याग है वह याग अच्छा है, उसको करना है, इस अर्थ में लक्षण, पूरा वाक्य में लक्षण। और एक है गौणी प्रयोग, यजमान प्रस्तर, प्रस्तर माने दर्भ मुष्टि, यजमान माने याग करने वाला, इस याग करने वाला ही प्रस्तर है, इस तरह का प्रयोग वेद में मिलता है। लेकिन ये गौण प्रयोग है, यजमान में जो गुण है वह गुण प्रस्तर में है, इस तरह का गौणी वृत्ति का प्रयोग है। और ग्रंथ में मीमांसा शास्त्र में गुण शब्द का प्रयोग मिलता है। व्याकरण वाला क्या बताएगा, अदेंग गुण, इस तरह का सूत्र से अकार वगैरह गुण है बोलेगा। न्याय शास्त्र वाला क्या कहता है, न्याय शास्त्र वाला 24 गुण को बताएगा, रूप रस गंध स्पर्श सब गुणों को बताएगा। लेकिन मीमांसा शास्त्र में गुण माने क्या है, अंगम, अंग माने द्रव्यम देवता, गुण शब्द का अर्थ ऐसा है। और रूपम शब्द का भी प्रयोग मिलता है, रूपम माने क्या है, रूपम माने द्रव्यम, द्रव्यम अथवा देवता। और वेद शब्द का भी प्रयोग मिलता है, वेदन कृत्वा वेदिंग करोति, वेद करके वेदी को करना है, ऐसा वाक्य है। यहाँ वेद शब्द का अर्थ क्या है, वो ऋग्वेद यजुर्वेद वगैरह वेद नहीं है तो क्या है, दर्भ मुष्टि विशेषा। और धर्म शब्द का प्रयोग मिलता है मीमांसा शास्त्र प्रकार से, धर्म माने यागादिरेव धर्म, आप पढ़े होंगे, याग वगैरह धर्म है। धर्म का लक्षण है वेद प्रतिपाद्य प्रयोजनवदर्थो धर्म, इस तरह का धर्म का लक्षण है। लेकिन पशु धर्म जब इस तरह का प्रयोग मिलता है, वहां धर्म शब्द का अर्थ अंग है। हर जगह में धर्म माने ऐसे याग वगैरह अर्थ नहीं। और प्रकृति विकृति शब्द का प्रयोग मिलता है, प्रकृति माने मूल द्रव्य, इस तरह का लोक में प्रयोग है। लेकिन यहाँ प्रकृति माने यत्र समग्रांगोपदेश ता प्रकृति ही, जहां पूरा अंग का उपदेश है उस याग को प्रकृति कहते हैं, माने याग का नाम है। और भावना, भावना माने किसी व्यक्ति की भावना, किसी मन की भावना, ऐसा नहीं है। ये तो भावना माने क्या है, यहाँ एक प्रवृत्ति, प्रवृत्ति अर्थ में प्रयोग है। भवितुर भवनानुकूलो भावयतुर व्यापार विशेष, ये भावना शब्द का प्रयोग। और अतिदेश, देशम अतीत्या, इस तरह का अर्थ नहीं है। अतिदेश माने एक प्रमाण है। पुरुषार्थ का प्रयोग मिलता है, पुरुषार्थ माने धर्मार्थ काम मोक्ष, ऐसे हम समझ लेते हैं। लेकिन यहाँ धर्म पुरुषार्थ माने स्वयं प्रार्थित साध्यादीन अनुष्ठानम, इस तरह का अर्थ है। और अनारभ्य विधि ही, अनारभ्य विधि माने विधि का आरंभ नहीं हुआ, ऐसा अर्थ नहीं है। प्रकरणात् बहिर्भूत विधि ही अनारभ्य विधि, प्रकरण से जो बाहर विधि मिलता है उस विधि को अनारभ्य विधि कहते हैं। और नियम विधि ही, नियम माने रूल्स, ऐसा समझेंगे, लेकिन नियम माने रूल्स नहीं है। यहाँ अप्राप्त अंश पूर्णम, ऐसा अर्थ है। और अष्टाकपाल, अष्टाकपाल शब्द है, अष्टाकपाल माने 8 कपाल, ऐसा अर्थ नहीं है। अष्टसु कपालेषु संस्कृतः पुरोडाशः अष्टाकपालः, पुरोडाश द्रव्य को बता रहा है। और प्रषदाज्यम, प्रषदाज्यम माने आज घी में दही मिलाने से उसका नाम बनता है प्रषदाज्यम। और स्थानम, इस तरह का बहुत प्रयोग मिलता है, लेकिन अलग अलग अर्थ में है। और 4 प्रकार का पद को देख सकते हैं, रूढ़ पद है, यौगिक पद है, योग रूढ़ है, यौगिक रूढ़ है। उद्भिद वगैरह पद यौगिक रूढ़ है, पंकज वगैरह है योग रूढ़। और 2 शब्द का शाब्द बोध बताने के लिए 2 प्रकार का वाद प्रसिद्ध है, अभिहितान्वयवाद, अन्विताभिधानवाद। कुमारिल भट्ट लोग अभिहितान्वयवाद को मानते, अभिहितान्वयवाद को मानते। पद ज्ञान से पदार्थोपस्थिति होती है और पदार्थोपस्थिति से शाब्द बोध होता है। माने पदार्थोपस्थिति के लिए कारण है पद ज्ञान, और शाब्द बोध के लिए पदार्थोपस्थिति कारण है, ऐसे बताते। लेकिन पद ज्ञान से शाब्द बोध नहीं बनता सीधा। अन्विताभिधान में क्या फर्क है, पद ज्ञान से ही शाब्द बोध हो रहा है, पद से ही शब्द बोध हो रहा है। पद से पदार्थोपस्थिति, पदार्थोपस्थिति से शब्द बोध, ऐसा नहीं है। और पदार्थ और शब्द बोध में पद से जब पदार्थ आ जाता है उसमें शक्ति प्रमाण, शक्ति को लेंगे। पदार्थ से जब शब्द बोध आ जाता है उसमें लक्षणा मानेंगे। और पद से पदार्थ और पद से ही शब्द बोध, दोनों शक्ति से बोल के अन्विताभिधानवाद में बोलते है। तो वेद वाक्य का अर्थ कैसे, अग्निहोत्रम जुह्यात स्वर्ग कामः, इस तरह का वाक्य मिलता है। अग्निहोत्रम, यहाँ द्वितीय विभक्ति है, जुह्यात विधि शब्द है, और स्वर्ग कामः माने स्वर्ग फल है। तब शब्द बोध बनता है अग्निहोत्र नामकेन होमेन स्वर्गम भावयेत्, क्योंकि हवन की प्राप्ति नहीं है, हवन साधन बनता है। अग्निहोत्र नामकेन हवन होमेन हो गया, बाद में स्वर्ग साध्य है, फल है, इसलिए स्वर्गम अग्निहोत्र होमेन स्वर्गम भावयेत्, ऐसा अर्थ। और लौकिक एक वाक्य है, देवदत्तः ग्रामम गच्छति, इस तरह का प्रयोग मिलता है। यहाँ देवदत्त कर्ता है, ग्राम कर्म है और गमन क्रिया है। इस तरह का शब्द बोलता है। देवदत्त कर्तृ का गमन कर्म का गमनानुकूला भावना, भावना मुख्य विशेष शब्द बोध मानते हैं मीमांसा शास्त्र में। सर्वेभ्यः एतादृश महान अवकाशः दत्तः, समयाभावात् मया विस्तारः न कृतः। एतादृश महान अवकाशः भवद्भिः प्रदत्तः इत्यतः सर्वेभ्यः धन्यवादाः।
Thank you so much, sir. Is there any question? हाँ, please.
धन्यवाद सर, आपका व्याख्यान काफी सुंदर और रुचिकर है। चित्रण के साथ ये आपने संपुटित किया है, ये काफी खूबसूरती को दर्शाता है। मेरा प्रश्न है शब्द और अर्थ की नित्यता से मेरा प्रश्न है। अपने शब्द और अर्थ की नित्यता बताइए। मेरा मानना है कि शब्द और अर्थ दोनों किसी देश काल में ही गमन करते हैं, किसी परिस्थिति के अनुसार ही गमन करते हैं। जैसे कि अगर मैं उदाहरण से करूं, अगर ऐसे में मारता हूं तो मुझे चोट लगता है और वो कहते हैं, और किसी को खुशी प्रतीत हो रही है, उस खुशी में अगर मैं ओह कहूं तो उस ओह का या कुछ मेरी भावना का अर्थ नहीं रह जाता है। तो इस सामान्य परिस्थिति में ही अर्थ है। तो कहने का अर्थ यह है कि इसकी नित्यता मैं कैसे सिद्ध कर पा रहा हूँ। सर, आप मुझे इसकी नित्यता के बारे में कुछ स्पष्ट रूप से बताएं कि आपके नित्यता की परिभाषा क्या हो सकती है। शब्द का दो प्रकार है, ध्वनि और वर्ण। गौ वगैरह वर्ण है और ध्वनि है। ध्वनि से शब्द की अभिव्यक्ति हो जाए। आप जो ध्वनि के बारे में बता रहे हैं ये सब ध्वनि है, वो अनित्य। विचार कर रहे हैं शब्द से वर्ण, वर्ण नित्य है हमेशा। गौ, क्योंकि वहां प्रतिविज्ञा स्वयं देवदत्ता। कल जिन देवदत्ता को देखे थे, वो नेक्स्ट दिन जब दिखता है तब क्या बोलेंगे? कल जो जिन देवदत्ता को देखे थे वही देव बोले। गकार का भी स्वयं गकार, कल गकार का उच्चारण, आज भी जो गोकार वही गकार है। ये अनुभव, इस तरह का अनुभव से वर्ण शब्द ध्वनि नहीं। वर्ण जो है शब्द का दो प्रकार, वर्ण वर्ण नित्य।
मतलब प्रतिष्ठित नहीं होता ना?
नहीं, प्रतिविज्ञा से वर्ण नित्य है। मीमांसा में शास्त्र में मानते हैं। इसमें बहुत सूत्र है। नाद वृद्धि परा, वर्णांतरम अविकारः, ये सब सूत्र है। इस सूत्र से साधन किया है। इसके लिए नहीं, कल जिन देवदत्ता को देखे थे नेक्स्ट दिन दिखने से वही देवदत्ता मानेंगे, वो अलग अलग नहीं है। गकार में भी क्या है? कल जिन गकार का उच्चारण किए थे और आज जिन गकार का उच्चारण करेंगे वही स्वयं गकार रहा। इस तरह का प्रतिविज्ञा लोक में।
तो नित्यता प्रतिस्थापित नहीं होता है, तो देवदत्त भी तो नित्य हो जाएगा ना। देवदत्त शरीर तो
नहीं, इस तरह का बहुत प्रमाण है। नाद वृद्धि परा, प्रख्या भावात, इस तरह का सूत्र है। बहुत सारे से साधन किए।
बता दीजिए।
अगर क्या बोल रहा हूँ,
उसका उनका आर्ग्यूमेंट का एसेंस बता दीजिए।
नहीं, एक शब्द नित्यत्वाधिकरण है। इसमें बहुत विचार है। इसमें शब्द नित्य है माना।
विचारी जानना चाहती हूँ।
उसमें एक उदाहरण है स्वयं गकारा, प्रतिविज्ञा है।
प्रत्यभिज्ञा से नित्यता नहीं आता है, वही मेरी प्रश्न है।
नहीं, एकत्व समझ में आता है। नहीं, नाना वर्ण नहीं है, जो एक है नित्य है। हम सूर्य में देखें, सूर्य को भी जग में सूर्य को देखेंगे, उस जग में सूर्य को देखेंगे, वो सूर्य अलग अलग नहीं है, एक ही सूर्य। और आप जो बता रहे हैं वो आनुपूर्वी विशिष्ट वर्ण को बता रहे हैं आप। जैसे पुस्तकम, इसमें पु अक्षर है, बाद में स्थ है, बाद में क है, वो अनित्य है। आनुपूर्वी अनित्य, लेकिन जो वर्ण है वर्ण नित्य।
ठीक है। ये सब तो असहमतियां बनी रहेंगी, क्योंकि डिफरेंट स्कूल्स में डिफरेंट सबके अपने अपने सपोजिशंस हैं, अपना एस्टेब्लिशमेंट है। तो हम लोग आगे चलते हैं डिस्कशंस को छोड़ के। हमारे लास्ट स्पीकर हैं डॉक्टर सूर्य प्रकाश पांडे, who will be speaking on भाषा दर्शन एवं भाषाई खेल सारांशिका। सर प्लीज।
सभागार में उपस्थित समस्त गुरुजनों को प्रणाम, और यहाँ पर बैठे हमारे सम्मुख जो हमारे कलीग्स हैं, और यहाँ शिक्षक, शोधार्थी, विद्यार्थी। मैं डॉक्टर सूर्य प्रकाश पांडे, बापू की धरती वर्धा से, वहाँ से आया हुआ हूँ। और मेरे आज के इस प्रस्तुतिकरण का जो विषय है भाषा दर्शन और भाषाई खेल। हम लोग देखें तो भाषा दर्शन विश्लेषण और भाषिक दर्शन का प्रयोग एक विशेष प्रकार के दर्शन के लिए किया जाता है, जिसका कार्य मूलतः भाषा विश्लेषण है। इस विषय पर आने से पहले हम लोग कुछ चर्चा करेंगे कि जो वेस्टर्न एक ट्रेडिशन है, सुकरात से अगर हम देखें तो सुकरात अपनी दार्शनिक गवेषणा में भाषा विश्लेषण को केंद्र में रखता था। और भाषा प्लेटो और अरस्तु के दर्शन में भी यह प्रवृत्ति डेवलप होती है मुखर होकर के। फिर अगर हम देखें तो अरस्तु का जो सिद्धांत था भाषिक विशेषता के विश्लेषण पर, वह भी आधारित है। अन्य दर्शन में भी भाषा विश्लेषण किसी न किसी रूप में हमें दिखाई पड़ती है। साथ ही बर्कले की ओर अगर हम चलें तो उसका भी एक उदाहरण है, वो कोट करना चाहूंगा कि सामान्य धारणा के विपरीत भाषा का मुख्य उद्देश्य केवल विचारों का संप्रेषण नहीं है, बल्कि उसके अन्य उद्देश्य भी, उसके अलग अलग एम है। केवल एक एम के लिए काम भाषा नहीं कर रही है, बल्कि अलग भी उद्देश्य है, जैसे किसी भावना को उभारना, किसी क्रिया को के लिए प्रेरित करना। अब हम जेएस मिल की बात करें तो मिल ने भी सुखवाद का प्रतिपादन इन्हीं चीजों को केंद्र में रख करके किया था। फिर आगे देखते हैं तो एजे एयर के तरफ अगर हम चले तो एयर कहता है कि ये दिखाया जा सकता है कि जिन्हें महान दार्शनिक हम समझते हैं, उनमें से अधिकतर लोग मूल तत्वमीमांसक नहीं बल्कि विश्लेषक थे। उनका काम विश्लेषण करना था, जैसे भाषा दर्शन के केंद्र में हम आ रहे हैं। एयर से लेकर के लॉक, बर्कले, ह्यूम और उसके साथ साथ मेंथम, मिल, प्लेटो, एक जो लंबी ट्रेडिशन वेस्टर्न फिलोसफर्स की आ रही है, उसमें सबके अगर अरस्तु और कांट को भी अगर हम देखें तो बेहतरीन उदाहरण है, जो अपने कहीं ना कहीं चिंतन के केंद्र में इन चीजों को हमेशा रखते थे। उसके बाद हम देखें तो विश्लेषी दर्शन स्पष्ट रूप से दर्शन को मात्र विश्लेषण मानता है, लेकिन इसका संबंध कहीं ना कहीं भाषा से है। और क्योंकि इसके अनुसार दर्शन संप्रत्ययों वाक्यों का स्पष्टीकरण है, जहां तक दर्शन का संप्रत्यात्मक विश्लेषण का संबंध है तो वह भाषा से है। भाषा विश्लेषण द्वारा ही दार्शनिक समस्याओं को वास्तविक रूप से हम समझ सकते हैं, और इन समस्याओं को हम देखने की दृष्टि में तार्किक भाववाद की तरफ भी चले, क्योंकि अनुभववाद तो उस दर्शन में भी हम देखें तो वह भी दर्शन को विश्लेषण मानता है, और उसके साथ साथ भाषा विश्लेषण को सर्वाधिक महत्व देता है। अरस्तु की फिलॉसफी में सभी विज्ञान दर्शन के अंतर्गत आते हैं। मूर का जो दार्शनिक प्रयास था वह भी इसी तथ्य में निहित है, क्योंकि मूर शायद सबसे पहला दार्शनिक है जिसने यह अनुभव किया कि कोई भी दार्शनिक कथन जो साधारण भाषा का उल्लंघन करता है वह असत्य है, और जिसने सतत रूप से उल्लंघन करने वालों से साधारण भाषा की रक्षा का भरसक प्रयास भी किया। एक जो ट्रेडिशन स्टार्ट होती वहां हम देख रहे हैं। रसल और मूर के पश्चात जो पूर्ववर्ती विटगेस्टाइन है, जब उधर देखें हम और तार्किक अनुभववादियों की तरफ हम देखते हैं तो साधारण भाषा दर्शन की उत्पत्ति में इन लोगों का भी एक बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है, महत्वपूर्ण योगदान रहा। और विटगेस्टाइन का उद्देश्य न तो साधारण भाषा का विकल्प निर्मित करना था, न उसके सरल वाक्य के निरीक्षण वाक्य हैं ऐसा ही प्रूव करना था, बल्कि उसका उद्देश्य किसी भाषा विशेष का नहीं बल्कि सभी भाषाओं की अनिवार्य शर्तों का प्रस्तुतिकरण था। उसकी मूल समस्या यह थी कि किसी भाषा के सार्थक होने के लिए क्या आवश्यक है, मैंडेट क्या है, क्या उसकी कंपल्सेशंस हैं, और उसके अनुसार भाषा सत्य का चित्र है। सार्थक भाषा वाक्यों की समग्रता है, और इसमें वाक्य से तात्पर्य वह वस्तु स्थिति है जिसका वह चित्र है, पिक्चर की बात करता है। इस अर्थ में साधारण भाषा बिल्कुल ठीक है। हमारी बोलचाल की भाषा के सभी वाक्य वास्तव में जैसे हैं तार्किक दृष्टि से पूर्णतः ठीक है, किंतु साधारण भाषा इतनी जटिल है कि ऊपर से उनका तार्किक आकार क्लियरिफाई नहीं हो पाता, स्पष्ट नहीं हो पाता, वहां प्रॉब्लम्स फील होती है, समस्या उपस्थित है वहां भी। अब हम लैंग्वेज गेम की तरफ आगे बढ़ते हैं तो उत्तरवर्ती विटगेस्टाइन की फिलॉसफी की सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट कंसेप्ट में आता है, महत्वपूर्ण अवधारणा है, और भाषा दर्शन का भी एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट आयाम है, पिलर है। इस अवधारणा के अनुसार शब्द वस्तुओं, वाक्य वस्तुओं के चित्र नहीं है बल्कि भाषाई खेल के उपकरण है। भाषाई खेल वे विभिन्न तरीके हैं जिसके अंतर्गत हम अगर देखें तो जिस भाषा का हम प्रयोग कर रहे हैं उसका प्रयोग भिन्न भिन्न परिस्थितियों में किस प्रकार किया जाता है। गलत भाषाई प्रयोगों के कारण समस्या में उलझे व्यक्ति को भाषाई खेल के द्वारा हम यह स्मरण कराने का प्रयास करते हैं। विटगेस्टाइन ने फिलोसफिकल जो प्रॉब्लम्स थे उनके सॉल्यूशंस के लिए जो समस्या का समाधान था, यह निष्कर्ष स्थापित किया कि दार्शनिक समस्याएं वास्तव में समस्या नहीं, प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं मानता, बल्कि वह लैंग्वेज बेस्ड प्रॉब्लम है, भाषागत समस्याएं हैं। पूर्ववर्ती विटगेस्टाइन टेक्टिटस में भी जो भाषा के बारे में कहता है कि भाषा का जो जिस स्वरूप की वो बात करता है वह कहता है कि वो कृत्रिम और अयथार्थ है, सामान्य भाषा के प्रयोग से दूर है, जो भाषा के अर्थों को सीमित कर देता है, जिससे भाषा के अन्य आयाम उपेक्षित हो जाते हैं। भाषा के संबंध में कुछ विशेष धारणा लेकर चलना दार्शनिक समस्याओं को जन्म देता है। वहीं से फिलोसफिकल जो प्रॉब्लम है उससे चूंकि हमारे मन में एक धारणा बनी रहती है, हम उसके अकॉर्डिंगली उसे सोचते हैं, तो प्रॉब्लम्स वहीं से बर्थ होती है उसका। भाषी प्रयोग को देखने की जो विधि है उसे विटगेस्टाइन ने भाषीय खेल कहा है। अब इसके द्वारा अगर कोई समस्या आए तो इस समस्या की भाषीय व्यक्ति के साथ साथ भाषी खेल खेलने से समस्या का सलूशन हो जाता है, निदान हो जाता है। विटगेस्टाइन का लक्ष्य है कि दार्शनिक समस्या के निदान के लिए कोई सैद्धांतिक निदान हम प्रस्तुत करें तो यह नहीं होना चाहिए, बल्कि समस्या मुलझे व्यक्ति को कोई जानकारी देना है, बल्कि वह यह जानता है कि उसे अनुस्मरण करा देना है, अर्थात साधारण भाषाई प्रयोग द्वारा स्पष्ट रूप से उसे प्रेजेंट कर देना है, प्रस्तुत कर देना है लोगों के बीच में, क्योंकि यह एक क्रिया है जिसे विटगेस्टाइन ने फिलोसफिकल प्रॉब्लम्स के सलूशन के रूप में, भाषाई खेल के रूप में सबके सम्मुख रखा है। अब हम इस भाषाई खेल की अगर डेफिनेशन देखें तो कोई सर्टेन परिभाषा में नहीं दिखती है, एक अलग अलग एंगल पर लोगों ने अपने अकॉर्डिंगली उसे एक्सप्लेन किया है, लेकिन उसका सामान्य विवरण प्रस्तुत किया जा सकता है, उसे एग्जाम्पल्स के द्वारा हम प्रूव कर सकते हैं। उसमें आशा यह है कि अर्थ के विषय में सोचना भ्रांति में डाल सकता है, इसलिए भाषी व्यवहार को देखो। विटगेस्टाइन कहता है कि डोंट लुक फॉर मीनिंग, लुक फॉर यूज की तरफ देखने के लिए बात करते हैं। अर्थात दार्शनिक समस्याएं एक उलझन है, ऐसी उलझन है जिससे निकलने का कोई रास्ता नहीं है। हम बौद्धिक शिकंजे में जकड़े रहते हैं, भ्रांति में पड़े रहते हैं, और दर्शन में हमारी स्थिति, मैं एग्जांपल दूंगा कि ठीक उसी मक्खी के समान है जो बॉटल में है, निकलना चाहती है बट रास्ते उसे नहीं पता है, उसी बीच में सराउंडिंग में चक्कर लगा रही है। तो ऐसे सिचुएशन में जब ऐसी प्रॉब्लम्स के सोल्यूशन की ओर हम जाते हैं तो हमें फिलोसफिकल गेम जो लैंग्वेज गेम की बात करनी पड़ती है, वहां पर वही एक रास्ता दिखाई पड़ता है। अब विटगेस्टाइन दार्शनिक समस्याओं के लिए बताते हैं कि कहाँ से इनका ओरिजिनेशन होता है। तो जो शब्द का जो वर्ड्स है उनके मिसयूज से वहां का उसका ओरिजिनेशन होता है, जो शब्दों का दुरुपयोग है वहां से ये प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं, क्योंकि ये वास्तविक समस्याएं ना होकर के बल्कि बौद्धिक जड़ता से प्रभावित होती है, भ्रांतियां हैं। तो इनके समाधान की नहीं बल्कि निराकरण की आवश्यकता है। अगर समस्या है तो समाधान की आवश्यकता है, लेकिन अगर भ्रांति है तो हमें इसका निराकरण तलाशना होगा, उसका सलूशन देखना होगा कि कैसे हम इसको निराकरण करके सही जो मैसेज है उसको दे पाए। विटगेस्टाइन के अनुसार दर्शन का कार्य केवल वास्तविक प्रयोगों का वर्णन करना है, इसके लिए सैद्धांतिक अध्ययन सैद्धांतिक अध्ययन प्रस्तुत करना नहीं, क्योंकि फिलॉसफी का जो कार्य है वह प्रयोग में हस्तक्षेप करना नहीं बल्कि यह केवल वर्णन करता है। विटगेस्टाइन ने यह भी कहा, पीआई में कहते हैं कि यह मात्र पूर्वाग्रह है, वास्तविक विश्लेषण का परिणाम नहीं। इसके अनुसार अर्थ या वाक्य की पूर्णता सुनिश्चित सीमा नहीं निर्धारित की जा सकती, क्योंकि किसी शब्द का अर्थ भाषा में उसके प्रयोग पर निर्भर करता है, और इस जो अर्थ है वह एक मेंटल एक्सरसाइज है, मेंटल एक्शन है, कह सकते हैं मानसिक क्रिया है। विटगेस्टाइन भाषाई खेल के अंतर्गत ये पार्ट को भी उठाते हैं, रेज करते हैं कि भाषा को बोलना एक प्रक्रिया है, जीवन का एक पार्ट है। पीआई के एक अनुच्छेद में वह ये भी ऑगस्टाइन के कन्फेशंस में एक एग्जांपल देते हैं, जिसमें ऑगस्टाइन ने लिखा था कि जब कोई वरिष्ठ व्यक्ति किसी वस्तु का नाम उच्चारण कर उस वस्तु की ओर बढ़ता है तो वह यह देखता है कि वस्तु ध्वनि के द्वारा कहा जाता था, और जिसका उच्चारण किया जा रहा है तो और जिसे हम कहना चाह रहे हैं वह हाव भाव के द्वारा जो मॉरल एक स्वाभाविक भाषा है उसकी तरफ हम ले जाते हैं। हम इसके द्वारा हमारे ही मनस की स्थितियों को व्यक्त किया जाता है। धीरे धीरे मैंने इसको समझना सीख लिया कि किसी वस्तु को किस ध्वनि से बोलते हैं, कि विटगेस्टाइन ऑगस्टाइन की सब व्यक्तिकरण से प्रभावित हुए एवं उनकी इस शब्दों के सामने उन्होंने मानव भाषा के विशिष्ट चित्र को प्रस्तुत किया। वैयक्तिक शब्द जो होते हैं वो वस्तु का नामकरण करते हैं, वाक्य ऐसे नामों को सम्मिलित करते हैं। विटगेस्टाइन को यह प्रतीत होता है कि जैसे प्रत्येक शब्द का एक अर्थ होता है, अर्थ शब्द के साथ जुड़ा होता है, बिना अर्थ के शब्द की महत्ता नहीं है, क्योंकि दोनों कहीं ना कहीं इंटर रिलेटेड रहेंगे, अंतर संबंधित रहेंगे। वस्तु के लिए जिसके लिए कोई शब्द है, मान लीजिए किसी चीज के लिए हम देखें एग्जांपल, किसी का नाम ही है या फिर किसी वर्ड्स को हम उठाते हैं तो उसके मीनिंग को कोरिलेट करके चलना पड़ता है, क्योंकि विदाउट अगर ऐसा करेंगे तो प्रॉब्लम आएगी। एग्जांपल आगे है, जैसे मान लीजिए कि विटगेस्टाइन लैंग्वेज गेम के बारे में भी कहते हैं कि एक पक्ष शब्दों को बोलता है और दूसरा उस पर अमल करता है। जैसे हमें खाना खाना है, भोजन करना है, अभी यहाँ से अनाउंसमेंट होगा लंच के लिए कि हमें भोजन करना है, तो एक भोजन का जो इमेज है वो हमारे मन में अनायास ही आएगा कि भोजन में क्या है, भोजन की मीनिंग क्या है, हमें यहाँ के ऊपर चलना है, फिर वहां पर लंच करना है। एक शब्द बोलते ही हमारे मन में एक भाव आ जाता है। जैसे एक एग्जाम्पल है कि जब बच्चा प्रारंभिक अवस्था में इस भाषा को सीखता है तो वहां पर हम किसी बच्चे को अगर लैंग्वेज सिखाना है तो क ख ग उसको एक जो 12 खड़ी है उसके बारे में हम कड़ियों को सिखाते हैं, और मान लीजिए कि उपकरणों की बात करें तो यह एक उपकरण पेटी है जिसके अंदर हथौड़ा है, चिमटा है, स्क्रू ड्राइवर है, मापक है, स्क्रू है। तो सबके अलग अलग और उपयोग और कार्य हैं। शब्दों का कार्य भी इन वस्तुओं के कार्य के समान है। जिस प्रकार किसी औजार का प्रयोग तब किया जाता है जब इसके उपयोग को सीखा जाए, तो उस प्रकार शब्दों का उचित प्रयोग तब होता है जब उसके उपयोग को सीखा जाए। बिना उपयोग को सीखे अगर हम शब्द का प्रयोग करेंगे तो शायद वह मैसेज नहीं जा पाएगा जिसको हम देना चाहते हैं। इसलिए शब्द प्रयोग उपयोग सब तीनों जो अंतर संबंध एक आ रहा है अर्थ को लेकर के, वह यहाँ पे आता है। क्योंकि भाषा के प्रयोग में जो भ्रांति उत्पन्न होती है उसका एक कारण है, कई बार शब्द जब बोले जाते हैं या लिखे जाते हैं तब उनके समरूप प्रतीति के कारण उसका अर्थ स्पष्ट नहीं होता। जैसे इंडियन फिलोसफी में ऐसे एग्जांपल्स पढ़े हैं, समय अभाव इसलिए मैं नहीं जा रहा हूं। फिर पीआई में उन्होंने फिर कहा 38 आर्टिकल में कि उदाहरण के लिए यह शब्द को लीजिए, क्या यह शब्द भाषा खेल के अंतर्गत नाम है या यह शब्द वह सांकेतिक भाषा में वह कहलाता है। उनका कहना है यदि इस संबंध में हम भ्रम उत्पन्न न करना चाहें तो अधिक अच्छा यह होगा कि इन शब्दों को नाम न कहा जाए, बल्कि नाम न कहा जाए। नाम शब्द का प्रयोग विभिन्न प्रकार के शब्दों के प्रयोग को विभूषित करने के लिए होता है एवं परस्पर एक दूसरे से अनेक प्रकार से वे संबंधित भी होते हैं। अब दार्शनिक समस्याएं तब उत्पन्न होती है जब भाषा अवकाश पर चली जाती है। यहाँ फिर हम पीआई के एक कोटेशन को कोट करेंगे कि जहां उन्होंने यह भी कहा कि अर्थ का तात्पर्य है कि भाषा में उसका प्रयोग। भाषाई खेल के विभिन्न प्रयोगों को उदाहरण के द्वारा स्पष्ट करते हुए कहते हैं कि भाषा केवल एक कार्य को संपादित करती है, ऐसा नहीं है, अपितु भाषा के द्वारा आज्ञा दी जाती है एवं आज्ञा का पालन किया जाता है। वस्तु की प्रतीति का वर्णन उसके मापदंड को प्रस्तुत किया जाता है, वस्तु की संरचना का वर्णन किया जाता है, घटना से सूचित किया जाता है और घटना पर हम जैसे एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे चिंतन करना, एक धारणा को बनाना, उसका परीक्षण करना और अनुभव के परिणामों को कैटेगरी वाइज एक हम प्रेजेंट कर पाए ऐसी फॉर्म में लाना, कहानी बनाना, पढ़ना, खेलना, अभिनय करना, गीत गाना, पहेलियां बुझाना, रोचक प्रसंग बनाना और उसे लोगों को बताना। और देखें तो एक प्रॉब्लम है तो उसका सलूशन करना, एक भाषा से दूसरी भाषा में ट्रांसलेशन करना, पूछना, थैंक्स करना, अभिशाप देना, अभिनंदन करना, प्रार्थना करना, ऐसे कार्य भाषा के द्वारा संपादित होते। बिना भाषा के ऐसे कार्यों को हम संपादित नहीं कर सकते हैं। भाषा के अनगिनत कार्य हैं, कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स हुए। इसकी संख्या को अनिश्चित इसलिए माना गया क्योंकि ये हमेशा से नए तरीकों को इसके प्रयोग के लिए खोजते हैं। अब अर्थ की अवधारणा अगर विटगेस्टाइन की ओर देखें तो विटगेस्टाइन कोई भी वस्तु जो गुणात्मक रूप से अपने आप से परे संकेत करती है या उसका जो अर्थ है वह केवल इसलिए है क्योंकि उसका एक निश्चित प्रकार उसके द्वारा प्रयोग होता है। एक एग्जाम्पल यहाँ उन्होंने दिया कि क्योंकि शब्दों का अर्थ केवल इसलिए है कि उसका एक प्रयोग है, अतः यह स्वीकार किया जा सकता है कि अर्थ उनका प्रयोग है। एग्जाम्पल देते हैं कि मान लीजिए बाहर हम निकलते हैं और प्रसाधन कक्ष का एक तीर लगा हुआ है, तो उसको देखते ही हमारे मन में एक इमेज होती है कि यहाँ पे लेफ्ट में या राइट में जहां भी सिंबल दिखा रहा है उस तरफ वो है और जिसको रिक्वायरमेंट है वहां जा सकता है। तो किसी को पता नहीं है, लेकिन उसे देख करके यह कहते हैं कि इसका अर्थ यह है कि प्रसाधन कक्ष दाईं ओर है, परंतु यह प्रश्न उपस्थित होता है कि तीर कैसे दाईं तरफ से अपने को इंगित करता है, यह अपने आप से कैसा ऐसा किस प्रकार बन सकता है, क्योंकि तीर तो कुछ मृतक लकीरों की व्यवस्था है, वो कुछ जीव उसमें नहीं है, कोई ऐसा नहीं कि वो डिनोट कर रहा है, हमें इंस्पायर कर रहा है, लेकिन हमारी एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि हम उसके आधार पर एज्यूम कर सकते हैं कि हमें लेफ्ट में है या फिर राइट में है, वो सिंबल से डिसाइड हो रहा है, डिराइव हो रहा है वहां पे। और फिर हम देखें तो इसमें महत्वपूर्ण बात है कि यदि कोई व्यक्ति प्रसाधन कक्ष जाना चाहता है तो वह उस चिन्ह को देखता है और दाहिनी ओर चलता है या बाएं ओर चलता है जिधर उसका सिंबल डिनोट कर रहा है और वहां से चल के अपने गंतव्य स्थल जहां डेस्टिनेशन उसका वहां वो पहुंच जाता है। लेकिन यह केवल भाषाई खेल के कारण होता है जो मानव व्यवहार के अनुरूप बनाया गया है। इसी प्रकार तीर से अनेकों दिशाओं को इंगित किया जा सकता है, कई एग्जाम्पल्स ऐड किए जा सकते हैं। फिर उन्होंने कहा प्रत्येक चिन्ह अपने आप में मृत लगते हैं, उन्हें जीवंत कौन करता है, ये सवाल उठता है यहाँ पे। लेकिन प्रयोग में वह कैसे अपने आप को एग्जिस्टेंस में लाता है, क्या उसमें जीवन था या वह प्रयोग ही है जो उसे जीवंत करता है। तो वास्तव में इसमें कंक्लूजन यह रहा कि प्रयोग ही है वो जो उसे जीवंत करता है। विटगेस्टाइन कहते हैं कि मानव चिंतन में एक महत्वपूर्ण विशेषता है कि उसमें एकता और सार को देखने की प्रवृत्ति है एवं मानव को ये प्रवृत्ति आवश्यक रूप से अनेक दार्शनिक उलझनों को उत्पन्न कर, जैसे हम यहाँ पर डिबेट कर रहे हैं, हम क्वेश्चंस को पूछ रहे हैं, जो अपने लेक्चर आ रहे हैं उस पर क्वेश्चन और डिबेट चल रहा है, वाद्य जातीय तत्वबोधक की भारतीय परंपरा है, तो उसमें जो समस्याएं हैं वहां पे आ रही हैं, लेकिन वह यही खूबसूरती है उस समस्याओं के बारे में। ऐसा नहीं कि जैसे मान लीजिए हम लोगों का एरिया नहीं है लेकिन दूसरा एरिया है, तो जिसके एक्सपर्टीज है उसके भी व्यू आ रहे हैं और उस पर भी आप सुन करके वहां से कुछ सीखने के लिए जो एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण आयोजन हो रहा है उसमें हम पार्ट बन सकते हैं। तो यह इंपॉर्टेंट बात है। फिर ब्लू एंड ब्राउन में उन्होंने लिखा है कि भाषा हमें भ्रमित साधिस्ता, नहीं एक में पहले पीआई में विटगेंस्टीन ने यह भी कहा कि मैं तुम्हें विभिन्नता जो आई विल टीच यू डिफरेंसेस। फिर ब्लू एंड ब्राउन का एक कोटेशन उनका है कि भाषा हमें भ्रमित सादृश्यता निगमित करने के लिए प्रलोभित कराती है, और उन्होंने कहा कि दार्शनिक उलझन के लिए भाषा को दोषी माना जा सकता है, क्योंकि ऐसा हमें प्रतीत होता है कि हम अपनी साधारण भाषा में सुधार करना चाहते हैं। और उसके साथ साथ ठीक है भाषाई खेल, फिर हम लोग कंक्लूजन पे आते समय भाव है। विटगेंस्टीन ने जो फिलोसफिकल प्रॉब्लम्स है ओवरऑल, अगर हम कंक्लूजन की ओर देखें तो यह निष्कर्ष स्थापित किया कि दार्शनिक समस्याएं वास्तव में समस्याएं नहीं है, बल्कि वह भाषागत समस्याएं हैं। क्योंकि फिलॉसफी की अपनी समस्याएं जो उनका अलग स्वरूप है, वह लैंग्वेज के कारण उपजी हुई समस्याएं हैं, और उनका सोल्यूशन भी उन्होंने देने का प्रयास किया। चाहे टेक्टिकस को हम देखें, चाहे पीआई को हम देखें, तो वह कृत्रिम और यथार्थ है, क्योंकि सामान्य भाषा प्रयोग से दूर है, और जो भाषा अर्थों को सीमित कर देती है उसके अन्य आयाम उपेक्षित हो जाते हैं। इस प्रकार से एक छोटा सा प्रयास था जिसमें विटगेंस्टीन के भाषाई खेल को, भाषा दर्शों को विवेचित करने का प्रयास किया गया। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. And now this paper is open for discussion. If you have any question, any participant, yeah, please ask your question. Take the mic. Please come. Where is the mic?
धन्यवाद सर, आपने बहुत सुंदर व्याख्यान दिया। मेरा प्रश्न ये है कि जैसे कि आपने बोला है कि भाषा का प्रयोग, तो ये भाषा का प्रयोग विटगेंस्टाइन के अनुसार सब्जेक्टिव होगा या ऑब्जेक्टिव है? मतलब जैसे मैंने देखा कि तीर वाला जो आपने बताया, तो मैंने देखा तो मेरे लिए तीर का निशान हो सकता वो वहां जाना है कहीं पे जिस तरफ उसका इंगित किया गया। किसी और व्यक्ति ने अगर उसको देखा तो उसके लिए अर्थ कुछ और हो सकता है। और दूसरी चीज इसमें यह है कि भाषा के प्रयोग के माध्यम से क्या हम, जैसे लिबरेशन की बात आती है, मोक्ष की बात आती है, इसको कि भाषा के माध्यम से वर्णन नहीं किया जा सकता, उसको किस तरह समझेंगे? मतलब इसके प्रयोग से भाषा का मतलब प्रयोग कर सकते उस तरह से कि नहीं? ये
आपकी जो जिज्ञासा है, बेसिकली जो मैंने सिंबल का एग्जांपल दिया, तो मानव के ह्यूमन के अंडरस्टैंडिंग पे डिपेंड करता है, क्योंकि वह मानव व्यवहार का पार्ट है। वहां विटगेंस्टीन मानव व्यवहार के पार्ट को ऐड करते हुए बात करते हैं। जैसे किसी भी सामान्य से भी इंसान में यह समझ है कि हमारा डेस्टिनेशन कहाँ है, हमको कहाँ जाना है। तो जिसको नहीं भी पता है वह डिनोट से एक कोरिलेट कर ले रहा है कि हमारी रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है। जैसे मान लीजिए कि आपको कैंट स्टेशन जाना है, आपको रास्ता नहीं पता है, लेकिन आप उस रास्ते तक पहुंचने के लिए जितने भी संभव प्रयास होंगे वह करेंगे। चाहे आप इधर से जाना है आपको, चाहे फिर कहीं भी जाना। आपने अमेरिका को देखा नहीं है, लेकिन अमेरिका जाने का चांस आपको जब पड़ेगा, या आप जब जाना चाहेंगे, जब आपको हो सकता है कभी चांस आपको मिले, तो आपने देखा भी नहीं, लेकिन आपने अपने बड़े उससे सुना है कि नहीं वहां पे है। तो यह जरूरी नहीं कि आप वो जान रहे हैं, वो आपकी ह्यूमन अंडरस्टैंडिंग का पार्ट है, क्योंकि वहां पर आपकी जो समझ है, मानवीय समझ है, उससे कोरिलेट करते हैं। नहीं, डिपेंड ऑन द सिचुएशन, सब्जेक्टिव है वहां पे।
ठीक है, thank you so much for all the 4 speakers, and now I would like to invite our president of the session, Professor Sethi, for his remarks. Sir, please come on the podium.
So I'll not waste my time and your time to summarize again what they have explained for 20 minutes plus. So what I'll say that the first two presentators, they deal this Quinean theory of meaning nicely and elucidated some of the components, concepts, and then after that, two presenters, those have discussed about meaning by considering symbols and so on and so forth. So I hope this session was fruitful. So with this note, I thank all the presenters, and also I thank Dr. Neetu for organizing this. So hope we are coming to the last end, and perhaps lunch will be waiting for us. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks to you too, sir. And you all have to be here at 2:30 sharp for the valedictory session. So please go and have your lunch as soon as possible. Enjoy your meal, everyone.